And now, good mic work comment.
Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cell.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour!
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries!
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power!
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good mic work commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday once again, everyone. What's going on? And welcome to your Winged Eagle podcast for January 14th, 2023. Hope you guys are having a good weekend so far. I got a very rainy day here in San Diego, so it's a great day to be up hanging out with you guys and chatting some wrestling. And I'll tell you what, man, I don't know how we're going to be expected as fans to be able to monitor the entire Vince McMahon WWE sale situation along with being right in the middle of Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season. I got to tell you what, man, I hope that we get some sort of a conclusion on some of this Vince McMahon WWE drama prior to WrestleMania. Otherwise, it's going to be a super busy time here and era here on the channel in the next couple of months, which is good for wrestling YouTubers with all the stuff to talk about. But man, I hate talking about business and acquisitions and mergers and shareholders and stocks and all that stuff on a wrestling podcast. That sucks. So I really don't want that to dominate all of these podcasts. But I think until we get some sort of a resolution or some sort of an idea what the future holds for WWE, where they're going to end up, who's going to buy them, if anyone, and what Vince McMahon's role will be in the future of the company, until we get some sort of an idea of what's happening there, I feel like it's going to dominate podcasts, videos, live streams, and speculation. So as usual, that's what we're here to talk about today, the absolute latest on the WWE sale and the Vince McMahon situation, Stephanie McMahon stepping down, and who could potentially buy the company. Now, last week on Tuesday, the big rumors late at night of WWE being sold to the Saudis broke, and since I was going to Dynamite the next night in LA, the only chance I really had to come up and talk about that crazy situation was last Tuesday. So we came up late Tuesday night, like midnight on the East Coast, and talked about the rumors, and I stressed very emphatically throughout that entire hour-long stream that everything we were discussing was rumors, and it was only hearsay, and nothing, absolutely nothing was confirmed. So once we learned the next day that the Saudi shit was all bullshit anyway, I was very, very relieved, but we still came up and talked about that at length on Tuesday night. So then, as those rumors continued to grow, and then we found out that that was not the case, they haven't been sold to the Saudis, at least not yet, then we had Stephanie McMahon stepping down right after. They assured everybody that nobody would, that the sale would not be affecting WWE management, Vince McMahon's role would not be affecting WWE management, and then they go through all of this. I just want to make sure I can be heard. I saw a lot of super chats coming in there. I'm just making sure I wasn't muted or anything like that. So in light of all that news, another big story kind of broke this week that one of the many, and let me tell you, there are many potential buyers and suitors for WWE. The Khan family has now emerged. Tony Khan and his father, Shad Khan, I believe, owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and of course, they also own All Elite Wrestling. Talks of now AEW possibly throwing their hat into the ring and trying to acquire WWE or at least merge with them. Now, I'm going to give my full thoughts on the good and the bad of WWE and AEW merging. I'm not an idiot. We just left 20 plus years of a wrestling monopoly. I don't think any of us wants to go back there, but we will discuss what wrestling would look like if that indeed happened. So we're going to talk about all of that, where the best home for WWE might be. Disney, Amazon, Comcast, Saudis, AEW, who knows, but they're going to be landing somewhere. And in the meantime, behind the scenes in WWE, shit is all in disarray. They tried to hold a talent meeting last night at SmackDown. It doesn't sound like it was very reassuring, but until some sort of a resolution is made here, I think the talent and the staff and a lot of people who work in WWE are going to be very uneasy. They're going to be very, I don't want to use the word paranoid, but I would be if I was in the company, because I don't like uncertainty, and I don't like not knowing what is in my future. I like my path to be lit. So if I'm in that company right now and I'm looking and I'm staring down the barrel of all this uncertainty, I'm extremely uneasy. And what's really the motivation to go out there and do your job to the best of your ability when you know the other shoe could drop any day and you could be out of a job, or your job could be drastically and adversely affected by whatever WWE's strategic alternatives wind up concluding and how they wind up concluding. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, but it's not going to be all Vince McMahon and all WWE and all AEW. We're still going to be talking about other stuff as well, including Jay White wrapping business up with New Japan, likely heading over here to the States to sign with somebody, and apparently WWE is the front runner. We also have the latest on Cody Rhodes. He's basically set to come back training at the PC. He'll probably be at the Rumble. No announcement on that yet. I'm going to briefly touch on this past week's Dynamite, but you have a big review coming tomorrow, which I'll talk about in a second. And we'll also discuss the results of last night's Rampage and last night's SmackDown, and maybe touch on Raw as well, because we did have some news coming out of SmackDown last night with Adam Pearce making the ruling that they are going to be having the Usos defend the tag team titles separately. So they're starting a tournament on SmackDown. The winners will be the number one contenders for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, which implies that WWE might be looking to separate the titles, which is kind of surprising considering how close we are to WrestleMania. So if they are considering and thinking about and putting in motion plans to separate the tags, you have to wonder if the same might be true for Roman's WWE and Universal. But I cannot see Roman Reigns taking a loss any sooner than WrestleMania. And if WWE chooses to give him one prior to that, like at the Royal Rumble, and have Kevin Owens win the title, which would be fantastic, don't get me wrong, it would be crazy for Roman to get beat ahead of WrestleMania, unless, of course, Sami Zayn has something to do with that, and that could definitely happen, because as much as I don't see Roman dropping the belt, are we really going to rob Kevin Owens again at the Royal Rumble? This guy is 6 years overdue for another title run, and enough's enough already. Put the belt on him. He's the man. I'm a big Kevin Owens fan. You guys know that. So we'll talk about SmackDown. We'll talk about the Royal Rumble, the current card for the Royal Rumble right now, and all of the men's and women's wrestlers who have declared or qualified for the Rumble. We'll discuss that. And, of course, any questions you guys have, chatter in the chat there. We'll be getting into that as well. Let me cruise over here to the chat, do some shout outs, let you guys know what we have coming up tomorrow. Double header on the channel. We're going to be premiering my AEW Dynamite review and experience, kind of a blog or vlog from this past Wednesday's Dynamite. That's going to be premiering on the channel tomorrow, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And then tomorrow night, we're going to be watching the Royal Rumble 1996. The link to tomorrow's watch along is already in the description, so you can go check that out and save it for tomorrow. Rumble 96, Brett and Taker, Shawn wins the Rumble, Jeff Jarrett and Ahmed Johnson, Goldust and Razor, all sorts of cool shit, and a really interesting Rumble that night in Fresno. So we're going to be checking out 1996 tomorrow. So that's what's going on this weekend. It's going to be fun. Let me cruise over here to the chat. By the way, for those of you in here and have not hit the thumbs up button yet, I would really appreciate a like on this video. And if you are not subscribed, please do. We've had a lot of subscribers come into the channel this week, mostly due to the Vince McMahon news. So if you have not subscribed yet, please make sure you do. And if you want to go one further and support the channel, you can join and become a member. Join button is below, and there's also a link in the description for that. So if you want to help out, you can do so by doing one of those three things. I would appreciate it. Let's say hello to Jay Lambo. Regina Reese, has everyone forgot the disaster that happened when WCW and WWE merged? No, I don't think anybody forgot. I certainly didn't. I lived through all that. I was in my mid-20s when that simulcast went down on TNT and USA. But they didn't really merge either. That was more of an acquisition. WWE just swallowed up WCW, and the merger did not last for very long. We didn't see much of a WCW presence on WWE TV past that first year, other than the footage that we see in documentaries and DVD releases and, all of the library that they have. But yeah, that's one of the things we're going to talk about later. A wrestling monopoly is not good no matter who's in control of it, and that's something that I'm very much against. But if it came down to Tony Khan or the Saudis, I'm taking Tony Khan every fucking time in that scenario. So we will be talking about that very soon. Jet the Hawk, good to see you. Good to see Mohammed Tatanani in the house. Chaz Medeiros. We have Michael Cuomo, Population 420, and How Wheezy rounding out some awesome channel family members. Mark Gallen is here. Thanks for the $2. Are you responsive on your Instagram DM? Yeah, kind of, but I'm new to Instagram. Just started an Instagram account last month, and I kind of suck at the DMs. So if I've missed one from you, it's not on purpose. I suck at Twitter DMs too. I mean, they pile up, man. So it's hard to kind of go through there and look at them all, and then sometimes I'll miss one and I won't see it. So I am sorry, but I will check my DMs tonight because I'm off. Luckily, after this podcast, I don't have to cruise into work because it's raining in Southern California. So I'm like Newman. I don't go out when it's raining. So I'm staying home, and I'm going to be working on YouTube shit, editing tomorrow's video, and checking DMs, apparently. Jimmy Anderson, good to see you, my friend. Welcome from all the way across the pond. Good evening from you, and thank you for that very generous super chat. And Luke McAllister is in the house as well. Thank you for that 10. Hey, Greg, hope you had a great time at Dynamite. That street fight on Rampage was amazing. Anna Jay and Ty Mello might not be popular, but that's two awesome street fights they've been involved in. I do like their grittiness. Ty Mello has always kind of had that in her, but seeing Anna Jay, who doesn't really come off as that type of wrestler, be able to get nuts is pretty cool to see. Now, I had no idea how gnarly that table bump was that she took last night on Rampage. From my seat, I have the bump on video from my seat. I posted it on Twitter. I had no idea from where I was sitting that the bump was that bad, but then when you see it on TV, she basically flat back bumped on the concrete there, and a very, very poorly executed table risk bump from the stage that was probably ill-advised. Haven't seen any news about Anna Jay being injured, so she somehow hopefully escaped that unscathed, and I really hope she's all right. But very cool to see Ruby and Willow dressed in the Dudley gear, and of course Ruby had a crimson mask, which did get a lot of discourse online today. Saw a lot of people tweeting and arguing and debating about blood in wrestling. I'm like, look, motherfuckers, I know that sometimes AEW tends to use excessive blood. We have talked about this before, but look, if you cannot handle a wrestler's bloody face on Friday the 13th of all days, I hate to tell you, but you're a vagina. Sorry to be the one to tell you. Come on, guys. Blood on Friday the 13th, right as soon as Dynamite's over, you're going to turn on Friday the 13th and watch Freaky Jason cut somebody's head off. Please don't kill me, Freaky Jason. Nothing to lose. Martin Lawrence, Tim Robbins. Please don't kill me, Freaky Jason. Come on. So anyway, I don't think Ruby's Ruby mask was really that big of a deal last night, but some people did. We've got Mark Gallen back with $5 more. Appreciate that, dude. Glad that street fight happened in the main event. Should have happened back in the New Year's Eve in 2021. That's true. And yeah, that did close the show. That was the last match on that entire night of wrestling at the Forum. I was there for all of it. All of the Dark and Elevation tapings, then Dynamite, then Rampage. Those 4 women sent us home, which was pretty crazy. That's the last thing we saw, and I loved it. Good stuff. Population 425 months in as a family member. My God, AEW Fresno. I'll be there. Hopefully it doesn't rain. That's right. They're in Fresno, on Monday. And tomorrow's Royal Rumble Watch-Along 1996 is also in Fresno. That's cool. Good luck, man. I'm really, really pulling for you that you don't have to deal with any sort of rain or monsoon in Fresno because California has been getting hit hard. It's good to see Zach up in the house. Good to see Sam as well. Zach, thank you very much for being a channel member. K-Dog's Kennel, my friend Kevin, so good to see you, man. Glad you're here. Much love to you as well. I am doing great today. Max Pokebra is in the house, another 5-month member. No more monopolies, not to that nerd Tony Khan. I still think no matter how bad that sounds to some people, you could do worse than Tony Khan. You definitely could. But yes, no more monopolies. I am in agreement there. Mike Witt's in the house as well. Good to see you. We've got Melinda Ford, Lucian. We've got Alex the Spiteful Garocho. Melinda Ford's in the house. We got Ben. We got Sam. We got Gianna Forever. And hopefully I did not miss anybody else. And I did not miss any other super duper duper chats. Anyway, that should do it for the chat shout outs there. Also want to cruise over here and thank all of the current channel members and some of you who have just joined in the last couple of days. Mango Salsa, Josiah Blevins, Kevin, Red Raven Rucker, Ramon Coffee, MJ Parker, Ruben Litton, Fox Star Killer, Chaz Medeiros, the Juliet 316, Brandon Collier, Ray Frand, Alan Carter, Ian Joe Dunn, Randall Yates, Deshaun Robinson, Zach Palgett, Dre, Sean, 2018, Jordan Carr, Financial Truth Academy, Devlin Husband, Michelle, Mike Tong, Ian, Longboard, Sam, Jeff McMahon, Mikey Too Cool, Luke, Tar, Stephanie, Zelius, William, Bo Kavlovic, Spider, Alex, Zach, Chris Miner, Mike Witt, Jimmy Anderson, C-Mac, Mab, Joshua Aparicio, Brett, How Weezy, Spaz Phoenix, Ronnie, Raymond, Nicole Lensing, Marcus the Entertainer, Nikita Abalakin, Divine Ricks, Zane G, Chris Barrera, Michael Kumo, John J.E. Dennett, Tatanani, Nick Musser, K-Dog's Kennel, Max Pokebra, Spectra, Reese Jones, Victor Cologne, Isaac, George Morris, Stephen Taylor, Population 420, and the OG, JJ Leg. JJ Leg and Tatanani were both the winners of the giveaway we did a couple of weeks ago where we gave away 2 of Sami Zayn's My Dog t-shirts, where all of the proceeds go to Sammy for Syria, which is to help set up mobile clinics for displaced civilians and refugees. Really good charity that we've donated to about 3 times now. They won the t-shirts. I did see that they have arrived in the mail to you guys. I appreciate the screenshots and the tweets and enjoy the t-shirts. Very glad that they arrived to you. I think the only other thing I got to do is just shout out these current names. Ramon Coffee, Joseph Hudson, Chris Broski, Divine Ricks, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, John Redifer, Claudio Clavedetcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Reese Jones, Josiah Blevins, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Naveed, and Blake Moran. Thank you for continuing to support on the Patreon page and account. And some of you have been with me for many, many years. Half a decade, some of you have been with me on Patreon, which is freaking nuts. Thank you so much for all of your years and months of support over there. Like I said, big weekend on the channel. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to premiere my AEW Dynamite review from the LA Forum. There's going to be a lot of footage and some pictures of me and my experience at the show on Wednesday. That's going to hit the channel tomorrow at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. I had planned to have this on the channel on Friday, but I went to the show Wednesday night, drove home, didn't do anything Wednesday night, had a very busy day on Thursday, and then for some reason on Thursday night, I could not get out of work. I was just at work way later than I normally am, so by the time I came home and pulled all the videos and footage off of my phone and then recorded the voiceover, it was like 1:30 in the morning. So I started to edit it, but I planned for this to be like a 20-minute review. It's probably going to be more like a 35-minute review. So I was like, I'm not going to get this done in time. So I just put it on the back burner. I said, you know what? I'm going to release it Sunday morning as some bonus content on the channel. The only problem is I recorded it with the intent of it being released Friday morning prior to Rampage. So I'm on the review talking about Rampage, but trying to be careful about spoilers because I thought many of you would be watching the review ahead of Rampage and I didn't want to spoil anything. So I have to rectify that. I might just cut that stuff out completely or put a disclaimer up. Hey, I recorded this before Rampage. That's why I'm not talking about the actual results of the match. But that's just for Rampage. There's still a whole bunch of opinions and thoughts on the Dynamite show and Adam Cole's return, the Moxley and Hangman Page match, Bryan Danielson and Takeshita, the MJF stuff, and of course the Elite winning the Trios tag team titles in that best of 7 match number 7 ladder match. A super fun night at the Forum. So if you want to hear about my experience there, see some footage from the show and some pictures of me with some fans and shit like that, check out the channel tomorrow. I have the link really really late tonight, but it will be premiering on the channel tomorrow, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And then after that, at normal watch along time tomorrow night, 8 Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, we're going to be here to watch WWE Royal Rumble 1996 together. Big day tomorrow. And then Monday, we probably won't bother with a Raw review or anything like that. And we'll be back up here Wednesday for Dynamite. It's going to be a fun week. So that is what is on tap. Set your calendars. Oh, also, one more thing to tell you about. We are long overdue for a Q&A. And it's time to do one. So I've already got a date and time set for this. We are going to do a live Q&A right here on the channel, Royal Rumble weekend, Thursday, January 26th. I thought at first we might do it Friday after SmackDown, but I think Thursday's a better day. Nobody else is really up on YouTube, and it'll be a good night for us to come up here and just hang out, speculate on the Royal Rumble, and talk about who could win it, talk about WrestleMania, and answer a ton of questions. Haven't done this in quite a while, and I also wanted to make sure that the channel members have first dibs on all of the questions. So there is, for you channel members only, there is currently a post right now on the community tab that only you guys can see, where I am advertising the Q&A, and in the description, in the comments there is where you can leave your questions. I want to make sure that I have the channel members' questions kind of separated from everybody else. Everybody else who wants to submit a question, you can do that by email. Email me at goodmikework@gmail.com, and you can send me your questions, anything wrestling related, and we will get into it on the stream. And then that night during the Q&A, we will also be answering a lot of questions in the chat. And of course, super chats will take priority. All those will get answered as well. Channel members will get all of their questions answered as well, and then anybody else who sends it to the email, we will do our best to get to everybody. But that's the plan. We're going to do that on Thursday, January 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I think that would be a perfect time and place to do that. And then Royal Rumble weekend is going to be a big one too. On Royal Rumble Saturday, we're going to live react to the whole pay-per-view. We haven't done that in a while, so it's going to be a live reaction for the Royal Rumble. So get ready to spend a good, 4 to 5 hours stuck with my bald ass and watch the Royal Rumble together on January 28th. It's going to be fun. So Royal Rumble weekend is stacking up to be huge. Also, I'm not going to be here for WrestleMania. I'm going to be in LA at WrestleMania. So if you guys are going to the show, if anybody's going to be attending WrestleMania, hit me up on a DM on social media, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. We'll meet up. I'm sure there's going to be lots of things to do, and I'll be booking my plans for WrestleMania probably within the next few days. I'm going to be booking hotel and getting the tickets and all that stuff set for WrestleMania, and I will definitely be up there for a few days in LA. for all the festivities over there at the SoFi Stadium. So I think that finally wraps it up. 24 minutes into this podcast, I'm finally done with the bullshit, and we can start talking about stuff because I think it's time. It is definitely time. I want to knock out one more quick super chat before we jump in. Mark Allen, thank you for 5 more. Thoughts on the Ricky Andretti promo? I don't understand why people are upset given The Rock used to cut these promos back in the day. I will talk about the Ricky promo on Dynamite. You're going to hear that really, though, tomorrow in my review. But I didn't think the promo was very good either. I know that The Rock used to do it, but you also have to remember what eras and time periods you're in. You know, and cutting a sexist and ableist promo as a babyface in 2023, you know, I think Ricky could have cut an equally effective promo not using any of that stuff. So I do understand the discussion, but in terms of, you know, it takes a lot to really offend me. So, I mean, as long as they're not going too far over, MJF, I expect him to be, you know, a racist or douchey dirtbag in kayfabe because he's MJF and his job is to get right up over onto that line and potentially stick a toe over it. I totally get that. But Ricky Starks is a babyface, and yes, The Rock used to use those insults as a babyface as well, but that was a very, very different time period. I know that better than anybody. So, yeah, it sparked some discussion. I don't really have that much of a passionate dog in that particular fight. You know, I get it. I certainly get the complaints, but it wasn't something that I was really losing sleep over either. But you will hear more about that, Mark, in tomorrow's Dynamite review that will be hitting the channel. And again, sorry for a Dynamite review of all reviews hitting the channel so late. And by the way, when tomorrow's Dynamite review hits the channel, can you do me a favor? Can you show it some love? Can you go give it a like, give it a view? Because usually these type of reviews don't perform that well on the channel, and it's a lot of work for a low payoff. Like it's a pretty tedious editing process to get something like this up, and then the video doesn't perform well. It kind of sucks, but I do want to make a review and a vlog of every show I go to. I want that to be a regular thing on the channel. So if you see that video tomorrow and you don't have time to watch it, at least click on it, give it a like, and make sure that it tries to get pushed and recommended as best as possible. Greg would very much appreciate that. Now we can start talking about Vinnie Mac, WWE. Who's going to buy him? Where are they going to go? I think Arby's should buy him because Arby's already has the meat. You can just add some big sweaty men slapping meat, and then you've got yourself a restaurant. But WWE is continuing to explore strategic alternatives, which is a phrase we've heard multiple times with WWE. Let's try to backtrack here on the latest of what we know. Now, I talked about last Tuesday, we came up here and talked about the rumors of WWE selling to the Saudis because those rumors basically happened in tandem with Stephanie McMahon's resignation, which I think helped fuel a lot of rumors because, oh shit, if WWE is going to sell to Saudi Arabia, they're probably not going to allow a woman as a CEO. So Stephanie had to resign. But luckily, like we detailed earlier, that was not the case. It was all BS, at least for right now. WWE is safe from the Saudis, and they are not apparently even the front runners to buy them, but that still means nothing when Vince McMahon is going to be the deciding factor in all of this. So we know that Vince, a couple of weeks ago, made it known that his intent was to return to the WWE and basically force and muscle his way back in to the board of directors. He brought with him George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, and they kicked off 3 other board members, and Vince is back as the, executive chair, and nothing is going to be sold. WWE cannot be sold without his approval and without his signature, and that's the whole purpose of him trying to force his way back here. This, of course, sparked a lot of fear, a lot of speculation, not only amongst wrestling fans, but amongst the talent who are freaking out, rightfully so, because even though Vince and the WWE is trying to assure everybody that Vince's presence isn't going to have any effect on the management or the creative, WWE has been full of shit before, and as soon as not one day, maybe 2 days, I can't remember how many days it wasn't long, after WWE held the big company meeting assuring all of the staff that Vince is there to oversee a sale and nothing more, and the day-to-day management operations will not be affected at all. 48 hours later, Stephanie McMahon resigns from the company. Might not have been 48. I can't remember the exact amount of time, but it was not long. So right off the bat, they're immediately going back against something that they just told their own employees. So I can understand talent being worried, talent being concerned that Vince McMahon, even though he plans on staying out of the creative process right now, that doesn't mean that when WWE sells, if they sell, or whatever changes are going on behind the scenes, that he can't weasel his way back in to the creative process. Now, we spoke at length on this. If you want to hear why it would be so horrible for Vince McMahon to return to creative, I don't think none of you guys need a graph or a chart to figure this out. We all know how terrible and out of touch and ridiculously insane that man is. And I talked about how terrible that would be in probably the last 3 or 4 streams. So we know that Vince McMahon returning to creative would cause lots of problems. He would have to know and be completely self-aware of the fact that he is going somewhere where nobody wants him to be. And he's only doing that out of ego, and he's only doing it because he's the owner and he can do whatever he wants. He's willing to kill his own creation, art imitating life, when he brought in the NWO in 2002, because he said, if anybody's going to kill my creation, I'm going to do it. And that sounds like exactly what he is doing. He's injecting the WWE with a lethal dose of himself. And that has panicked a lot of people in the company, and it's panicked us. It's all we've been talking about for the past 7 days here on this channel. So Stephanie McMahon resigns. She is now returning to the leave of absence that she previously took prior to the Vince hush money scandal breaking. She also has just undergone ankle surgery. So she took this opportunity right away to go under the knife and get some work done on her foot. So best of luck to Stephanie in her recovery. Hope she's doing well. And that whole thing is very, very telling. It's very important that Stephanie resigned the way she did. And we speculated on the channel this past week that perhaps this was some sort of prearranged father-daughter agreement between Vince and Stephanie. I got to step down. You're going to be the CEO. But when I want to come back, I expect you to get the hell out of my way. Wouldn't be surprised if that's the case at all. But then we hear the reports yesterday that Triple H and Stephanie apparently opposed the sale. They were vocal about opposing a WWE sale. They don't want it to be sold because they probably see what could happen if it was. And that's also very telling that you don't have a board that's in complete harmony. Not everybody is on the same page and not everybody wants the same things. So Vince forcing his way in, and with the power that he has, he's going to be able to override basically what everybody wants to a degree. Now, there are still going to be responsibilities that Vince McMahon has to adhere to. With me knowing absolute dick about business, I know that if, for example, as we're going to talk about here later, one of the things that you've been seeing online a lot about the AEW and WWE merger, or AEW and the Khan family purchasing WWE, is that Vince would never sell to them. He would never do that. Now, I understand Vince selling to his competition would make him look bad. It would give off the impression that he, lost this war, just like when WCW sold to him. So I can understand maybe Vince not wanting to sell to the Khans, but let's just say somebody like them ponies up an incredible amount of money. Vince, I don't know if he necessarily has the right to say no to some obscene amount of money without being sued by his shareholders for not taking the deal. Wait a minute, you're not going to take that deal after you've repeatedly said that the only thing that matters is maximizing shareholder value. This is going to get us the best deal. This is going to get us the most money. They're offering the most. They can pay the most, and you're going to turn it down because of a wrestling feud? No. So no matter how much you think Vince can't and won't, if the Khans put down a good enough offer, he just might. And I just think it's foolish for anybody to be so caught up in the wrestling tribalism that you would be foolish enough to make a statement like that, knowing all of the shit we've seen in the last 10 months. We've already had 3 or 4 things that supposedly was never going to happen. All have happened this year, or this past year in 2022. And a lot of fans also aren't even old enough to remember that many of the things that they claim will never happen have already happened in wrestling before. So it is not an absolute guarantee that Vince would not sell to them. They put up enough money, he would sell to them. So you have to think about all of that too. So Vince being there is the driving force. He's really going to have a major influence on where this company gets sold and who buys it. So it just depends on who makes the best offer and what the situation is, and if Vince McMahon is working on this deal so he can negotiate a role for him in the company. And that's, I believe the Khans even went on record and said, even though they've had no conversations with WWE at all about a sale, they would be open about having a role for Vince. But then you got to think about Vince. Forget about the Khans, just anybody in WWE or anybody who buys WWE, finding a role for Vince McMahon, technically, that would make Vince somebody's employee. And does Vince really have that in him, in his ego, to have never worked for anybody in his life other than his dad for a short time? Now, all of a sudden, at the very, very end of his life, he's going to have a boss. I just figured Vince would sell his company and sit at home. But if he's still at 77, he's going to be 78 years old, I believe, this year. If he's still hell-bent on being a part of creative, like, who is Vince kidding here? Like I said before, Vince might be a freak of nature, but there's one person he's not going to be able to beat in a fight, and that's Father Time. And we've seen it. He's aging. He looks old. He mumbles. He can't talk. He looks like a shriveled up, dried nutsack. And I just don't know how much longer Vince thinks he could be able to do this. He should think about succession. And at his age, he knows he's not going to do this forever. So putting the creative part of the company in competent hands should be one of his very, very, very top priorities. I mean, I think it should be above shareholder value, but if it's got to be number 2, fine. But it should still be very important because that's the product you're putting out on TV. And how big of a genius is Vince really? Yes, he got those big TV rights deals that Fox and NBC Universal paid $1 billion for. But they did that, and they got that money with some of the worst ratings and some of the most out-of-touch, boring, and passionless creative that we have ever seen. If Vince was such a genius, imagine how much money he could have gotten had those ratings been double what they were. And so WWE was able to get all that money with shitty creative. So now you've got the fans' enthusiasm kind of pick back up. We feel a little bit more comfortable with the creative regime in WWE. Ratings have seen an increase. Talent morale is higher. Fan enthusiasm is higher, which should translate into higher numbers on TV, which should then translate to higher rights fees when it's time to negotiate that stuff. So I think Vince being there thinking he's the only one that can get this done, he is a foolish, foolish old man. And I am so ready for him just to disappear from this business. It's getting annoying. So we heard all of these stories this past week, and then we hear about Stephanie McMahon and Triple H opposing the sale. And then we hear yesterday as well that WWE has hired some outside firms to advise on these strategic alternatives, which is basically just code for a sale. Now, the following comes courtesy of Jeremy Lambert on Fightful.com, and I quote, WWE is engaging with outside advisors as media rights negotiations come up. WWE announced that they have retained the Rain Group, LLC, as a financial advisor, Kirkland & Ellis as a legal advisor, and August, LLC, as strategic communications advisor to support WWE's management team in connection with a review of strategic alternatives to maximize the value of the company and the shareholders. How many times do we have to read that sentence? So they are, pedal is to the metal here. They are really gassing things up here. They are being very aggressive, it sounds like, in pursuit of a sale. And there still is a possibility that they don't sell. That's still very, very possible. And Vince, and that's what WWE has been telling its staff, is that that's what Vince is there to do, to spearhead the pursuit of a sale. And that's all he supposedly is there to do, but we know better. Now, if that weren't enough, if you didn't feel unsure about WWE's future with all that news, last night, WWE attempts to hold a talent meeting prior to SmackDown. This was a Triple H-led meeting where Kevin Dunn also spoke. Now, the following is courtesy of Fightful Select, who had a recap of this meeting. And I quote, Triple H held a talent meeting at SmackDown that helped calm the nerves of some talent. Since Vince McMahon forced himself back into the company, there have been numerous talent concerns about their creative futures. Triple H said that he's assured that Vince McMahon's return is to see if the company should sell and help lead the charge and figure out who they might want to sell the company to if they do. He made an attempt to squash the story of a sale being a done deal and said even if it happened, it would take a lot longer than that, which is something we did discuss on Tuesday about the Saudi deal. I said, there's still going to be a long transition period, and even though a couple of people were saying it was a done deal. We knew that that wasn't the case. What calmed, goes on to say, the story goes on to say, what calmed many talents' concerns was Triple H stating that none of what is going on with Vince McMahon will change the creative process he has in place or the team that helped puts it together. Triple H did keep it open and say that anything could change. That's important. But right now, Vince McMahon defers final creative to Triple H. Yeah, right. Triple H also said that while he and Vince may have had discussions, here we go, they may have had discussions, he is the one who makes the final call. WWE was adamant in an official sense to us this week that Triple H was still running creative. Triple H also thanked the talent for all they do and said he understood that there was some concern. Yeah, no shit. There was an update on this story as well, posted later. We've also discovered that Kevin Dunn spoke at the talent meeting. This is great. He said that he'd worked for Vince McMahon for 40 years, and since coming back, Vince hasn't said a peep to him about making changes. Oh yeah, because if there's one person you can trust, it's Kevin Dunn. We have heard that Vince had made suggestions regarding other departments, but that it wasn't implemented. Dunn largely reiterated Triple H's points. It was said by many that this was a calm down meeting, which they've had to do several of these already just in the past few days. How many calm down meetings do we need to do? And for them to parade Kevin Dunn, this little fucker out there, to try to reassure talent, this guy who is not trusted by anybody, barely in this business. I don't think I've come across one single person in a shoot interview that said, you know what, that Kevin Dunn's a great guy. I mean, this guy is shit on it unanimously by so many people in the business, and they're going to bring him out there being like, me and Vince don't really talk. Bullshit. Nobody believes you. You've been working with Vince McMahon 15 or 20 years longer than some of these people in the locker room have been alive. And so we're expecting to believe you that you and your little truck that nobody sees doesn't have any text message conversations with Vince. Why would you think anybody would believe you? Maybe he is telling the truth. All I'm telling you is if Kevin Dunn told me something, I would not believe it. I would laugh it off. But anyway, so lots of concern in WWE. They are kind of doing damage control meetings here, trying to calm everybody's nerves. Props to everybody in that company who's been able to maintain focus. If I'm Triple H knowing all this stuff, because who knows what's going on in Triple H's head and Stephanie's head and the relationship they have with Vince McMahon and what kind of discussions they have off the record, and if they have dinner together or holidays. I mean, did they spend Christmas together? What did they do? Did they discuss this stuff? I don't know how they feel about each other. I don't know if Triple H is putting up a good front and He's game face, even though internally he's seething. He's just infuriated that the old man is trying to, really harm in a lot of ways in his mind the company, and he just has to sit back and take it if Triple H wants to remain in a position of power in WWE and still be able to help guide the careers of, the future talent of the company. He's got to just sit there and just do the best he can while all of this uncertainty is floating over his head. And I just think from a creative sense, it's really hard to be creative when you're stressed the fuck out. And yes, Triple H has got writers and all that stuff that to help him with these shows, but can you really just put your heart and soul into WrestleMania season, knowing that the company is on the verge of the biggest transition it's ever gone through in its history, and it's the most important time of the year? Triple H already had that cardiac event, and we were very worried for him about his health. And having a job and being in a position that he has, head of creative, has got to be stressful enough on its own. Imagine if you've got the stress and paranoia of a crazy, psychotic old man that happens just to control the entire company, can do what he wants, and you've got a lot of uneasy talent. You don't even know what your future is. WWE could sell to an entity that just slashes everybody. We saw that with WCW. That's one big thing that I worry about with WWE selling, is I don't want it to become what WCW became, because then it sold off, and then there was mergers and AOL and Time Warner, and then it was suddenly owned by an entity that didn't give a shit about pro wrestling. And then they would look at TV and say, oh, we can send somebody in there to write better than this, and they don't know shit about wrestling. We saw that in WCW. They would sometimes subtly mention or hint at authority figures behind the scenes that were usually network people. ECW did that a lot as well with Cyrus and the network and all that stuff. So you don't want that to be a problem. I I've had a lot of fans. I'm not a big Disney watcher. I don't really know Disney movies and what Disney owns and all of that. But I know a lot of fans have expressed to me extreme fear about Disney even buying WWE because what they could do to it, watering it down and just using it as a cash cow and not putting any meaning behind anything that they're doing. And everything's just, kind of a motionless shell, but is something that still pumps out money and revenue for its parent company. You don't want to see that either. So that's why I'm very concerned, because Vince McMahon, I always had, I guess, confidence and faith in Vince that he would, if he did ever sell the company one day or he did step down, that he would put the company in the hands of someone that he knows will keep WWE alive long after he's dead. And prior to just the entire business model changing and company going public and TV rights fees and Saudi Arabia money and all this money and revenue they're bringing in, the company has changed a lot. But I really did like the idea of what we thought was going to happen 20 years ago, that when Vince retired, he would just pass the company to Stephanie and Triple H, and maybe Shane would have a role, and then they can have a litter of kids. I think Stephanie and Triple H have, 14 girls? So one of them could wind up running WWE one day. I think Shane McMahon's got 8 sons and a dog. One of them could run WWE one day. I always liked the idea of it just staying in the McMahon family forever. But obviously, things change, and I would hope that Vince selling the company to someone, he would want to make sure that the company is protected and that it wouldn't suffer the same fate that WCW did. And it would always be a priority to whoever owns it. So hopefully, as crazy as Vince is, those still are priorities of his. Hopefully, that old man is confident to mumble to his associates that whoever he sells it to, he wants to make sure they take care of it, and you don't have to worry about big budget cuts and shit like that. You spend money on it. Wrestling is a lot of fun, and you don't want the talent to be affected with completely different business philosophies behind the scenes. So hopefully whoever takes it over, they have this stuff in mind. And again, much like Dana White sold the UFC, but he still remained in control of it, it would be great if whenever this deal is worked out with its Comcast, Netflix, Amazon, AEW, whoever, that Triple H is able to maintain more than just a job as head of creative. That's what I worry about. I mean, technically he could just be fired at any point if that's the case. So I just hope that there's some stability for the people who have been putting WWE together, the team of agents, the team of trainers and staff at NXT, the Shawn Michaelses, the William Regals, the Triple H's, all of the agents back there, the Jamie Nobles, and everyone who works in the company, everyone maybe except for Kevin Dunn. I would really hope they are able to keep their jobs. You've had seamstresses there and makeup people who've been there for 20 years. Hopefully everybody there can remain intact and there's not some just big, huge company-wide overhaul, which does tend to happen in mergers and acquisitions a lot. So hopefully none of that stuff happens when we finally get to the end result here. And it does land in the hands of a competent owner. So that brings us to one potential buyer. I'm sorry it took me 48 minutes to get to this point, but here we are now to talk about one of the potential bidders or buyers or suitors for WWE, and that is the Khan family. Not Nick Khan, but we're talking about Tony Khan and his dad, who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have a playoff game later today, I believe, correct? Best of luck to them. They have emerged, reported by Barron's. Barron's is a sister publication to the Wall Street Journal. And they ran a story that said the Khans have emerged as a potential bidder, although no conversations whatsoever with WWE has taken place. And they also said if the Khans were to be a buyer, they would likely look for a financial partner to acquire the asset. So they just wouldn't buy it outright. A lot of people forget they got a shit ton of money. They got a lot more money than Vince McMahon and WWE, which I always thought was funny that the haters referred to them as like AEW is like a mud show and a t-shirt company. I'm like, son, they got a lot of money behind them. This is a lot more than a mud show and a t-shirt company. They are well funded. They are about as well funded as you could be for a wrestling company. And I had said on this podcast for years, I've been saying it back 5, 6, 7 years ago. I said the only way WWE is ever going to find a suitable competitor that is for real is if you get a Mark Cuban type of guy that's willing to spend millions and has the millions to spend. And it didn't turn out to be Mark Cuban. It turned out to be Tony Khan instead. But they got the money and they ain't going anywhere. And there's no fear of them going out of business unless they choose to, go out of business. So they can afford to spend the money, and they definitely would have the money to buy WWE. But again, would they be able to pony up more than Saudi Arabia, more than Amazon, more than Disney? Probably not. But if they did, holy crap, that would be interesting. Now, CNBC also ran an article that said AEW would be interested in a merger and said that the Khans would be open to having a role for Vince McMahon. So a merger and, AEW buying WWE, if they were to merge and you created a big wrestling supergroup, don't get me wrong, you'd have some great dream matches and all of that, but then you're back to having one company under one umbrella. Now, I don't think it's going to be as simple. I've seen a lot of people say, Tony Khan can't even run Ring of Honor. How is he going to run WWE? I don't think that if they bought WWE, Tony Khan would just book every single aspect of all the shows. He'd book Ring of Honor, Dynamite, Rampage, NXT, Raw, SmackDown. He's not going to do all that. I would still hope that WWE, like I said, its creative management team, Triple H and that regime and everybody in place there would remain largely intact is what I would hope. There would just be more of a Khan influence and stuff, and hopefully you could keep the brand separate. But we thought that with WCW as well. When WWE bought them, I was excited. I'm like, this is cool. They won the war. Fuck you, WCW. But now they own them. They can run Nitros and they could still relaunch WCW. And the idea of that was very cool to me. But we quickly saw that wasn't going to be feasible for WWE. And then the next year, when they decided to separate Raw and SmackDown into two separate competing brands, we quickly learned that even in 2002, when they first started it, they felt nothing like separate brands at all because it was still a WWE-produced event. You still had the same camera crew, the same ring setup and shit like that, and then that devolved and got even more and more watered down as each year went by, to the point now, in modern times, you have two identical sets. One uses red lights and one uses blue. And you don't have different feels. You don't have two separate feeling shows with two different environments. And what I've always liked about AEW is that they run different venues. They run smaller buildings, which changes up the vibe and the energy in the building a lot. Everything looks slightly tweaked, even though the stage and the setup is mostly the same. Where they are and how the building looks sometimes is different, and sometimes the atmosphere is different from show to show. Where in WWE, I can't tell what building or city they're in from week to week. Where you definitely have different vibes in AEW because they run smaller, more intimate, and a lot more lively venues most of the time. So I always liked that about them, is that they felt like I was literally watching a product that was not WWE. And regardless of how many WWE people might be on the show, it felt different. WCW and WWE felt like two different wrestling companies. There was differences there. The rings looked different. The staging was different. The setup was different. And the announcers and some of the production techniques, a lot of that was different. They felt like two shows. If you have a merger here, that's when you want to get streamlined with your costs. That's why WWE doesn't do all of those special, unique sets for pay-per-views anymore, because it's much easier just to take this Lego set, snap it together for each show, regardless if it's a pay-per-view or Raw or SmackDown. You snap it together like Legos, you screw it on, and then when the show's over, you unsnap it, fold it up, throw it in the truck, and you go. Where back in the day, I think there was a lot more, it was much more elaborate in terms of how they set up the set and the staging and all of that. So if WWE and AEW merged, I would just worry that we would have this just one homogenized, just monopoly again, where everything looks the same, it feels the same, and it lacks enthusiasm, it lacks passion, and that is what we just left. We literally 3 years ago, just left a monopoly when AEW formed. Finally, we have another U.S. promotion that's not Impact or TNA, that actually has money behind them, that actually has a TV deal with a network that's going to promote them and advertise them and give them a decent time slot. We are finally here. Yes, the wrestling landscape overall is very different than where it was 22 years ago. And WWE is nowhere near the level that it was in terms of ratings, and AEW is nowhere near that either. So, but still, it's competition, and it's something that we have not experienced in wrestling in a very, very long time. Now, a lot of fans don't deserve competition. I thought competition was great, but it just isn't the same as it was when WWE and WCW were around. Yes, you had tribal mentality back in those days. I was WWE flag carrier, but I didn't pretend that WCW wasn't doing a good job with some of its angles. I wasn't pretending that the NWO wasn't over. I wasn't pretending that Goldberg wasn't over. I wasn't pretending that they had some monumental moments and matches on their pay-per-views and on Nitros. Those definitely happen. Today, no matter what AEW does, no matter how great the show is, you are going to have people that are so fucking stubborn that they're going to insist that it sucks and it's rinky-dink and it's shit and all this stuff. So people just suck. Wrestling fans can't have nice things. They don't know how to act. They don't know how to enjoy competition. All they know how to do is be dickbags to each other on social media and pretend that the company that they hate is the dumb one and the one they love is the right one, and WWE fans are almost the same. So you got two equally annoying sets of tribal wrestling fans biting each other's heads off for no fucking reason instead of shutting up and just enjoying the great content and the competition and the rivalry that we're getting. I want to see WWE take shots at AEW. I want to see AEW take shots at WWE. These are things as a wrestling fan I haven't experienced in 20 years, and I'm glad it's back. But unfortunately, not a lot of wrestling fans don't feel that way. They actually feel the opposite, and they get their panties all tangled up over nonsense and over nothing. So, that being said, as much as I don't want a wrestling monopoly, as much as I think a wrestling monopoly is bad for business, it would be some delicious, dripping wet irony if all of these haters, these Mud Show T-shirt company, Kenny Olivier, AEW's the drizzling shits haters, and WWE is the big time, and AEW will never be as big and strong as WWE. That's their big flex. Hey, a company that's 60 years old is bigger than a company that's 3 years old. Really, Einstein? You have to point that out to people on Twitter? That's your big flex? Company with a 57-year head start is somehow bigger and makes more money than a company that started in 2019 and ran for 4 months before a pandemic hit? That's your big flex? Wow, you're smart. How long did it take you to dig up those stats? My God. So I think it would be hilarious. And it would be a punch of karma in the face that no group of douchebags in this world deserves more than these people to watch AEW then buy WWE. Triple H should have thought of this back in the 2019 Hall of Fame when he had the nerve to tell Billy Gunn that anytime he wanted, he could buy that pissant company just to fire him again. If AEW were to buy WWE, the first thing I would want someone to do, and this is coming from somebody who loves Triple H, I'm just playfully joking here. Go to Triple H's Wikipedia page, change his employer to pissant company. That would be so fun. So I think that would just be fun. I can't think that way. I have to put the good of the business ahead of my absolute delight to watch these haters crawl up their own asses and die when AEW purchases WWE. I'm like, see, maybe if you weren't such a fucking asshole, karma wouldn't have bit you in the ass like that. Maybe if you just tried to enjoy wrestling and let people enjoy what they want to enjoy and live and let live and not be such a miserable, angry prick 24/7, maybe you wouldn't be sitting here with egg on your face like the hating, miserable little fool that you are. I would love to see that happen. It would be so fun. I'd be sitting back here. What's that Big E popcorn gif? You know, I'd just be eating popcorn, just watching this madness unfold. And then watching people downplay. Then all those haters are going to try to figure out a way to well, it's not the same because Vince, they'll just figure some way out to make it right for them. And it's going to be fun to watch them hypocrisize themselves, 6 feet underground. I love it. I don't even think that's a word, hypocrisize. If it's not, I just made it up. So that would be fun. But still, at the end of the day, all jokes aside, as delicious as that would be and as fun as that would be to watch that waterfall of irony hit those assholes in the face, I don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want that. And forget about whatever your opinions. I mean, if there's any sort of little digs and insult to Tony Khan, weirdo, blah, blah, blah. Get the stick out of your ass. Tony Khan's got billions of dollars. Did you see him at the Jaguars game when they made the playoffs and he ran and he leapt into that player's arms? I'd rather have my wrestling owner be an enthusiastic spider monkey than being an egomaniacal, defiant hornball nut job. I mean, at least this guy cares. I'm not sure if I would care very much if I was sitting on a bank account with $20 billion in it. I would be very unmotivated to really go out there and be and make more money. I would just be like, I'm going to live off my fortune. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to live in a beautiful place, and I'm going to kick my feet up, and I'm going to be healthy and happy, and I'm going to travel, and I'm going to spend time with family and friends, and I'm going to enjoy this luxury and this wealth that I have, and I'm going to give a lot of it to charity. I'm not sure if I'm going to be working 24/7. I don't want to work all damn day long. So Tony Khan works hard. He's all involved in the football side of things, and he's booking TV for AEW. And he is, he's got a lot of wrestlers on his roster that he's responsible for, and he is stretched pretty thin. He doesn't need to wear any more hats. So that's why an AEW and WWE merger would be a little bit scary, for Tony Khan to be like, I could book Raw. I'm sure it would be fun. I mean, if Tony Khan booked Raw or SmackDown, I would welcome that, but I wouldn't welcome that on top of him booking Rampage and Dynamite and all of that, because Tony Khan ain't perfect, and he's never really booked wrestling before. He's got a very small and short resume. He's getting better. He's made some mistakes. He's learned from some of those mistakes, but I think this guy is still a good 5-10 years away from being considered a genius yet. So I think him having control of all of it seems unlikely, and I don't think that's something that Vince McMahon, for the fans to say Vince would never sell to him. Like I said, I think it's foolish to say that something would never happen, because a lot of things people thought would never happen happened last year, and a lot of things that people thought would never happen have happened in wrestling history. So nothing is for sure at all. But yes, I kind of agree that it would be crazy, and it would be really difficult to fathom Vince McMahon saying, here you go, Tony, here's my company that I've worked and I've had up for the last 40 years. Do with it whatever you want. Put the belt on Willow Nightingale. I don't care. So it would be really crazy and tough to believe Vince doing that. So that's why I believe whatever the end result here is with the sale, wherever they land and wherever they wind up, I would hope that there are pre-existing agreements or agreements written into the sale and the contract that keeps specific people in their specific roles and solidifies Triple H as the head of creative, where fans and talent don't have to worry about that changing in the future and whatnot. So it just depends. It depends on where they land. It depends on where they go and who winds up buying them. But I think that we just need to hope that the WWE product that we've all known for our whole lives, the damage to that is minimal in whatever sale. That the creative integrity and the stars and the wrestlers just remain as intact as humanly possible whenever the sale is finalized. But it is a weird time to be alive. We're all sitting here together, guys. This sale is going to happen on our watch in the next few months. When we first heard about the sale at the end of the year, I think I put a timetable of, I think I mentioned the first pay-per-view under a non-Vince owned WWE being SummerSlam, but maybe it would be Survivor Series, because I don't really know the details in a merger or an acquisition, how long it takes for that to take place. It's definitely not an overnight thing. And it takes some time for that process to transpire and for all the papers to be signed and that type of thing. But I feel like it's not going to be very long. I don't think we're going to be waiting for another 2 years. I think WWE really wants this to be paralleled with the rights fees and the rights deals and the TV rights and all that stuff. So I think it's going to happen. So we're all sitting here just waiting. I think any time between now and WrestleMania, we could get some sort of an announcement on a sale. And how crazy would that be is if this is drug out for another couple of months, and let's say there's a big press release on the Monday before WrestleMania that WWE has been sold to AEW. And then you've got a simulcast of Dynamite with Tony Khan on one side and Vince McMahon on the other. No, we're not going to have to go that far. But WWE purchased WCW right before WrestleMania 17, the biggest WrestleMania in their history, with all sorts of matches already booked for the show, including the owner of the company booked in a match, and then he comes out on the go home and purchases WCW before the biggest pay-per-view in history. That's a night I'll never forget. We've talked about it. I did a review of it for its 20th anniversary just a couple years ago. And that was nuts. So having something like that happen again, history repeating itself all these years later with WWE, it doesn't have to be to AEW, just whoever they sell to. If that announcement comes right before WrestleMania, I'm like, what is it about WrestleMania time that gets wrestling companies sold? I don't get it. But we're going to watch it. It's a crazy time, man. It's a crazy time to be alive. I cannot believe that all the things I'm going to witness, many of us are going to witness as a fan. I've lived through Vince McMahon buying the company from his dad. I've lived through the birth of Hulkamania. I've lived through the steroid trial. I've lived through the Monday Night Wars. I've lived through the NWO's formation. I've lived through the Montreal Screwjob, all the way through the Attitude Era. What else did we have? WWE, WWF changing to WWE. All of the tragedies, the Chris Benoits, the Owen Harts, and the murders and the deaths, needless deaths that we've seen, and the ugly underbelly of wrestling. And then the formation of AEW, Brawl Out last month, the Vince McMahon hush money scandal, Vince retiring from WWE, all of that stuff I've witnessed in my lifetime. And you guys have witnessed a lot of that stuff too. And just this year alone, just in these last 2 years alone, like in a couple years from now, we're going to sit here doing podcasts in 2024, 2025. We're going to talk about the craziness that unfolded in 2022 and 2023. And every time a big story happens, we're going to say, this is the biggest story since Vince McMahon stepping down or WWE selling it to whatever. We're going to always talk about these last couple of years. And I'm glad we're here to experience it together. And like I said, it's been pretty good for the channel as well. By the way, if anybody has not hit the thumbs up yet, and a lot of you haven't, please help me out. Thumbs up help get the video pushed in the recommended feed. It's very important, and likes are suffering on this channel. So if you guys can do that for me, look at this face. How could you turn me down? Come on, just hook me up with a like. I'd really appreciate it. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's what's going on with Vince McMahon and the company, and there's my thoughts on AEW buying the company. We're going to get into Jay White potentially heading into WWE as well in a minute, but let me cruise over here to the chat because I'm sure you guys have a lot of things to say about about when I was rambling about AEW and WWE. But let me knock out these super chats as well. Mike Witt, we should do a classic Monday Nitro watch-along sometime. We have to do a members-only watch-along this month, so I owe you guys one. Let's think about some Nitros. For those of you going to join us tomorrow night for the Royal Rumble watch-along, we'll discuss that. So join us tomorrow. Let me make sure I don't go too far and I don't miss any other super chats. I think the next one we have is Devlin Husband. My boy, Devlin, good to see you, man. Thank you so much for the $5. Listening to this while driving home from Denver after dropping my girlfriend off. Red light super chat for the win. Hopefully good mic work and buy WWE. Oh, man. Well, be careful, man. Don't be super chatting on the road. Plus, you're in Denver and it's snowing its nuts off up there. Brother, 10-2. 10-2. But thank you so much for chatting from the car. And if I did buy WWE, man, I mean, I guess I could. But who would do these? Who would do the reviews? Have you guys seen that? I guess NXT has got some podcaster gimmick, and it's this woman who just says a bunch of nonsense. There's like a 10-second clip. It might be completely out of context, but it's floating around Twitter. And she's like, I am the data collector, and I'm going to be downloading you, or something like. I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? You don't download somebody else. People download me. I don't download you guys. You guys are downloading me if you want to listen to this audio or whatever. And I laughed because I'm like, now that I think about it, a wrestling podcaster gimmick is probably long overdue. Wrestling podcasters, we're here, man. We're in this, and they know us. They know we're here. I know wrestlers watch me. I know a bunch of them that are aware of me, and they're aware of a lot of us in the YouTube community. So this is long overdue. I find it funny that they're doing it with a women's wrestler. It's fine, but I think you could have so much more fun with it if you made it, some angry douche who's overcompensating for getting his ass kicked every day of his life in junior high school. Those guys, mad, angry, screaming about everything. That would have been way more fun because you could get some mileage out of that. Get that guy on TV. He could be a great heel, man. He could make money. Have baby faces come out there and kick his ass, and then on the times when he does win and get it over, he can be so obnoxious and flip everybody off on the mic. Nobody knows anything more than me. You can be like the Trump of wrestling podcasters. It would be funny. I think a gimmick like that would have to be a heel. It would be really hard. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go out there and be babyface Greg. What a shitty gimmick. I'd be less over than Rocky Maivia. So I wouldn't work, but there's plenty of personalities out there, I'm sure, that would work just fine in something like that. And they should have had somebody like over the top. A lot of gamers are like that too. And people who do like financial channels. And, a lot of them are that's that guy that Kramer guy that was on like CNBC or that stock channel, and he's just like going out of his mind. He's very animated. Sports shows have Stephen A. Smith, shit like that. So somebody like that, I think, would be perfect in a gimmick like that. But this, whatever she was saying in that made no damn sense whatsoever. It was pretty funny. So if you haven't seen that clip, go check it out. Apparently we have a wrestling podcaster gimmick in NXT, and it sounds like Shawn Michaels wrote the promo. You know that video of Shawn from way back in the day, that gif of him trying to work the America Online, the computer? I think now as an old man, he doesn't understand like what download means. And I can just see him like a grandpa writing out that promo. I'm going to be downloading you. I'm like, Shawn, that's not how it works. Go lay down naked and put the belt over your crotch. Leave us alone. Spectra, good to see you, man. Shoot brother, for 5 months, man. You've been with me. Thank you for all of the months of support. 5 months, brother. Hope all is good for you, Greg. If WWE sells to Saudi, who do you see leaving? Imagine Owens, Zayn, and Sonya Deville would be out immediately. I did touch on this. I don't feel right about speaking for people. I don't know what their situations are. It's going to have to be up to them. Based on what we know about them, yeah, some talent is probably going to have an issue if WWE were to sell to Saudi Arabia. They might have a moral issue with it, and they could request a release or want out or want nothing to do with it. That can definitely happen, and I wouldn't be surprised, and I would expect it too. But in terms of speculating on who, I don't like doing that. I mean, Sami Zayn, obviously, because he's not even allowed to compete on the Saudi shows, and it was hard enough just to get women's matches on those pay-per-views over there, but they did get it done, and just that I just would not want them to be sold to them. And I'm sure a lot of talent feels the same way I do, but I don't like to speculate on what that talent could be, because what if it's not, or what if I'm leaving people out? So I'm sure a lot of talent will have an issue with it, and they will have decisions to make. And whatever those decisions are, I support them. You got to do what you got to do for yourself and your family. There's really no right or wrong answer to it. Nick Rose, Tony might do it with Comcast. If Tony Khan, if that is a partner, like when we did read in that Barron's article, they said that they would be looking to partner up financially to acquire WWE if they did it with a media company. Shit. Might be a good way to go. I mean, because one thing for everybody in the chat, I haven't gotten to all the comments yet, and I know there's a million of them on social media who are so adamantly against Tony Khan owning WWE. One thing you have to at least know and admit to yourself, that everything we talked about earlier about the fear of WWE being in the hands of an entity that no longer cares about it. That's what happened to WCW, where there was ownership changes and mergers all the time. At least with Tony Khan, this is a young man. He's not very old, with a lot of years ahead of him. That seems like he's a big wrestling fan. He just doesn't seem like he's going to wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm done with the wrestling business. Let's just sell it off. So at least for preserving the future of WWE, for preserving the history of WWE, remember Tony Khan owns a wrestling promotion because of all of the wrestling he watched in WWE. He was a huge Attitude Era fan, big Austin fan. I know he liked WCW too, but I think WCW or WWE really spoke to him. I have full confidence that Tony Khan would treat WWE's tape library with the utmost respect. They would find a streaming platform and have it available just like it is now. We would never have to worry about, anybody just thinking wrestling was worthless and just shelving it. I don't really think that would happen no matter who bought the company, but that would be a concern of mine. So at least with Tony Khan, it's a family with tons of money who loves wrestling. That's kind of where you would want it to land. I would much rather have WWE's intellectual property, just the company in general, under the ownership of Tony Khan than 50 no-name people sitting on a board at Disney, And if you disagree with that, then your tribalism is clouding your judgment, because I think that is one positive that people should look at. If it came down to, worst case scenario type of thing. But again, I'm not for it. I just think that there are positives. It's not 100% negative across the board. And if you think it is, then you're biased. Hate to tell you. Is the Ocho a channel yet? No, Sam, but it could be. Let's get ESPN the Ocho. It's a bold strategy. Hope it pays off. No, I don't think it's going to be Tony or Elon Musk is not going to be buying WWE. Vince did buy WCW for a sandwich. That's about what it cost. Yeah, Sky Group, Alex Levinsky brings them up. Their name has come up several times. I've seen it. The Sky Group would be great. And it would put WWE on Sky again and BT Sports in the UK. That's true. Yes, Kevin Dunn really said that. I know, Ben. I know, man. I know. Pardon me as I just read through some of these chats here because I was flapping my gums a lot about the WWE situation. And we're in no rush to get this podcast done today either, so that's why I'm kind of taking my time. We still have stuff to discuss, so if you're still here, just hang out. Yeah, poor Hunter, TYFU, good point. I really worry about Hunter. That's what I was talking about earlier, is that it would be really hard to do your job and focus 1,000,000% on what you're supposed to do when you got this crap hanging over your head, you know? Henry Martin, do you think it's just about the money now? No, not necessarily. It's not just about the money. To Vince and the shareholders, I believe it is. It is about the money, but that's part of the business that I'm not in full understanding of, because I don't know when it comes down to selling if it's just about, we've talked about this several times in the last week, if it's just about the highest bidder. Because if it's just about who will put the most money up, then that kind of puts the decision out of everybody's hands. Whoever offers the most gets it. But, you know, where is the line there? If somebody puts up a stupid amount of money, like let's say the Khans just got drunk one night and be like, you know what, let's offer them $20 billion. Let's offer them $20 billion. That's all. That's more than double what they're supposed to get for it. And Vince McMahon turns it down because I don't want to sell to the competition. The shareholders are going to be like, the hell you're not. You're going to sell to them right now. We will grab your hand, put the pen in your bony fucking hand, and we will write and scribble your ridiculous name on there ourselves. You are selling to them for $20 billion, sir. So I think he would have to. But what if the Saudis did that? You know, the Khans, I think the Saudi investment group would be able to put up that amount of money. They have a ridiculous amount of it, and they definitely are in the position of overpaying. So that's what worries me. If it's just about selling to the highest bidder, then you just need somebody willing to overpay, and I kind of bet that they would. They're crazy. These fuckers thought Yokozuna was alive. They're capable of anything. So if that was the case, again, the shareholders are going to be like, Vince, you need to sell to them, but then it's going to Saudi Arabia. So I just don't know. They have to find the right home. None of us are on the board. None of us work there. None of us really, truly know who would be the best platform, because none of us also work for any of these platforms. We know some of the pros and cons to Disney and Amazon and Netflix and things like that, but we don't know all of the ins and outs, and we don't know any of the pieces behind the scenes. We know very few of these people's names. We know the WWE side. We know Vince and Nick Khan, and we know Triple H, and we know a couple of board members, but in terms of whoever they're talking to on the other side, the heads of Disney and Netflix and Comcast, we don't know if these people are assholes or something. We have no idea. So there's just a lot we don't know. And let's just hope and pray that the people making this decision, specifically Vince McMahon, want WWE to land somewhere where they can be assured and they can be supremely confident that WWE has a long, long, long history and future. That's what I would be looking for and pursuing if I'm on WWE's end of this sale. Driving has concluded. Glad to hear that, Devlin. Tatanani, I'm kind of with you without knowing, like I said, a lot of the pros and cons to these companies. I mentioned Disney would be cool because they're so theme park related, and I think they could find a lot of other ways to make money with WWE, specifically building a physical Hall of Fame. I think that would be really likely, but a lot of fans pointed out, a lot of you guys who watch franchises that are currently under the Disney umbrella, you don't have a lot of great things to say about them. Unfortunately, I'm completely illiterate. I don't watch anything that Disney produces, or I'm not a Star Wars fan. I don't know any of that stuff. But there's been a lot of complaints coming out from that about how Disney does stuff. And if WWE could fall under that philosophy, it could be very damaging and harmful to the product. Fair enough. I'm glad you guys are giving me that opinion. So if you have more stuff like that to tell me that I don't know about, please let me know. So a lot of fans are concerned about Disney. So Comcast, for me, I guess if I had to have a front runner in my mind without knowing much about the business situation, I'm with Tatanani. I'm going with Comcast because there are already two existing relationships in place. WWE has been on the USA Network my whole damn life. So I was a little tiny kid. I was this tall. I was shorter than the guy that poses for trophies, this big. I used to watch WWE on the USA Network. I would love, as a fan, for that to remain. I would love for WWE just to remain on that network because I'm an old school nostalgic guy, and there's something comforting about, even though I hate Raw and hate the show most of the time, there's just something comforting about knowing that as long as I have been alive, and I'm old, I'm halfway to 90, as long as I've been alive, I can always turn on the USA Network and see wrestling. And that wouldn't change under a Comcast sale. Also, we already have the WWE Network on Peacock, and I know Peacock sucks. I know that. Can't find anything on there. It's hard to search. I'm getting better at it because we do the watch-alongs every week, and now I kind of understand a little bit how to navigate it. But if you're looking for something specific, it's really hard to find anything on there. But I hate changing platforms, man. I'm not trying to change platforms again. So if Comcast were to buy them, then essentially you would think WWE would remain on Peacock unless they buy the company and then they still license out the rights. I don't know how any of this shit works, but at least with Comcast, that's a relationship that's already there and it makes sense. Devlin thinks Impact is going to buy WWE. Dear Lord. Moxley versus Roman can happen. You know what I want to see? Moxley against Dean Ambrose. That would be good. That would be so good. Happy New Year to you, Hassan Taro. Good to see you. Yeah, Mark Cuban would have been interesting, yes, had that happened. I'm just kind of reading through some of these chats here. I know I got a couple of super chats coming in. I'm just seeing if anybody was freaking out about anything I was saying earlier. No, nobody's saying, oh, good mic work, you're crazy. That's good. All right, Max Pokebros back. Thank you very much, dude. Channel member for a long time. Appreciate that 5 from you. How about a compromise? Instead of TK or Vince, we can have a boss like Triple H. I'm truly sorry, but I'm just not a TK guy. That's okay. You don't have to be a TK guy. A lot of people choose not to like him. I think he's fucking hilarious. I like him a lot. But I have no issue if somebody doesn't like him. Go ahead, don't like him. Whatever. I feel confident enough in my years of watching wrestling that, you know, we've seen worse and we've had worse people in charge. Give me Tony Khan over Eric Bischoff any day. Any day. Give me Tony Khan over fucking Bill Watts any day. Some of those guys were assholes, man. Tony Khan is funny, he's crazy, he's enthusiastic, and he's a little rambunctious spider monkey, and that's what makes him adorable. But Max doesn't like him. That's cool. A compromise. A boss like Triple H. As much as I like Tony Khan, I trust Triple H in terms of his wrestling knowledge more. Tony Khan, I think, will get there, but at the same time, you got to know Tony Khan is a fan. You know, Tony Khan's a billionaire fan who decided to start a wrestling company. And granted, that's how everybody gets their start. But when you are the lead booker, promoter with very, very little experience and track record, then, you know, how can you expect to really perform that well right out of the gate? You're going to make some mistakes. Triple H, I think, is much more level-headed. He has a lot more experience doing this. And as we've seen, a lot like Tony Khan, he is really good with the talent. And talent really likes working under him. He was great in NXT. He mentored a lot of people and was hands-on with a lot of their development. And a lot of that is transferred over to AEW. We see Adam Cole and a lot of other people that Triple H had a hand in developing, thriving in AEW. You know, his reach extends far, and Triple H, much like Tony Khan, while he's not perfect, I think he's one of our better options for someone in charge in wrestling, because Triple H has been long known to be a historian of wrestling. He's always appreciated the history of the business and always tried his best to, you know, tribute the greats and always appreciate the lineage of everything that goes on. And they're both not bad, but Triple H, I would maybe trust in a lead booker role of a major promotion at this point where we sit more than Tony Khan. Yes. But I'm still kind of pro Tony. I really am. But that's cool, Max. Everybody's got their opinions. You're never a dick. You know, you've never once been a dick. You can say, I don't like Tony Khan. Cool. When you say, Tony Khan's a little prick, I hope he gets hit by a bus, that's when I just think fans need to chill out. Chill the F out. Devlin husband is back with 5 more. I'm home now. I can take over the channel if you buy WWE, so don't worry. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you can. going to have to be Devlin. Y'all going to be talking to him every week. Also, I want to see the Jags win the Super Bowl so WWE can send them belts. Exactly. As soon as they made the playoffs, that was one of the first things floating around the social medias was people were like, holy shit, if the Jags win the Super Bowl, they're going to be standing there and they're going to be holding a WWE replica championship belt. Oh, okay. Just reading a text message from my mother. Hi, Mom. Anyway, so that would be great if we got to see a Super Bowl celebration and them holding up the WWE title. The funny thing is, though, I don't think they would do that. I don't think WWE would send them the belt because they would probably know that they're going to have their own belt. Now, hopefully WWE doesn't have, I don't know how this works. Do they have some sort of an agreement with the NFL that they send the championship belt and the players hold it? Because if there's no agreement in place, the Jags are going to be like, fuck that. Give me some of those AEW titles. They're going to have the AEW World title. Somebody's going to be having the replica TNT title. That would be great. It would be so great to see AEW championships on a Super Bowl celebration, but I think it will be WWE. Everyone has a price. Exactly. That's a very, very good point. Yeah, and going private might help the product as well. I'd be fine with that. That is one. I hate to have any pros to a Saudi company buying WWE, but if they did, they would be going private and they wouldn't have to worry so much about shareholder PR and things like that. They're still going to have to deal with networks. I don't think they can just up and decide, oh, we're going to be TV 14 now. There's going to have to be some understanding there with the networks, but being privately owned would remove several obstacles that are there as a publicly traded company. So every buyer has pros and cons, you know what I mean? So I trust business people to weigh those pros and cons more than me, because I'm just a restaurant manager who talks about wrestling. Hollywood Guy, thank you so much for the $10. Good to see you, man. Greg, I don't see Tony buying WWE. Neither do I. We're just talking about if they did. Vince would never allow it. And there's that Vince never allow it again. Don't say that so quickly. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, if Tony buys it, he would have to kick Vince out, and Vince wants control, so it won't work. You are speaking in extremely general terms. You're speaking with just how we view it as fans. There is so much more to it than that, like I laid out. Yes, we know that about Vince. I'm sure Vince does not want to sell to his competition, and I don't really think the cons are a likely buyer, because I think there would be better options. If they're going to bid the same amount of money as Disney and everybody else, then they're probably going to lose out. I think the only way they would get that bid anyway is if they bid some sort of ridiculous amount where the shareholders are going to be like, you have to sell to them. So it's not just about Vince not wanting it and that's the end of it. Yes, he has a lot of control, but if it's something really super ridiculous and it's an offer that you'd be a fool not to take, it's not so cut and dry as you're making it. But yes, in principle, I do agree with you. I don't see Tony Khan buying it. I don't think they're really that legitimate of buyers or suitors. But the fact that their name is out there at least makes you want to talk about it. And you are right. If Tony were to buy it, whoever buys it, Vince staying in control in some way, it's not just Tony, it's anybody. Regardless who buys WWE, essentially, Vince would be working for them. And that would be weird. So those are possible reasons for it not to work, Hollywood Guy, but certainly not definite. And don't rule nothing out, man. We've seen some crazy stuff in the last year, haven't we? So it would be silly for me to insist that something will never happen. Spectre, appreciate the $10. I'd prefer Tony over Saudi, but I hope Tony doesn't buy it. I may not watch WWE anymore, but competition keep AEW at the top of their game. It's good for every wrestler and fan if there's competition. I agree 100%, Spectre. Appreciate that $10 from you, man. You said exactly what I've been saying the whole time, is that I'd prefer, if it was down to the Khans in Saudi Arabia, then I would love for Tony. I'd take Tony Khan any day over that, every day over that. But then you are returning to a wrestling monopoly, and we just came from that, and that sucks. So, no, we don't want to go back there unless we absolutely have to. So keeping two separate competing wrestling promotions is going to be good for wrestling fans, and let's just hope that it stays that way. Did I miss anybody else? Maybe Bob Vance, refrigeration, can buy WWE, says Ratnick. Bob Vance and Phyllis? Hell yeah. I would do what Bob Vance said. Could you imagine Phyllis being Stephanie? Phyllis being the CEO? Would you cross Phyllis? I think you're onto something there, Ratnick. Niners, 20 unanswered points. Right on. Thanks to those of you monitoring those NFL playoff games. All right, well, we are an hour and a half into this podcast, and we have still not left our first subject of Vince McMahon. It's time to leave that now. Let's talk about Jay White. Jay White is reportedly leaving New Japan. Contract is up pretty soon. Is he WWE bound? Fightful Select ran a story on Monday claiming that his contract is up soon, and he has been heavily recruited by WWE. He is currently booked in a loser leaves town match on February 11th against Hikuleo. So that is coming up in less than 1 month. Jay White, I believe, lives here in the States, and we've been hearing reports of him coming here. He has appeared for AEW before, wrestled at Forbidden Door, I believe, and has made several appearances for them. But now could be heading over to WWE. And you know what? This is going to surprise many of you perhaps, but I think WWE might be a better place for him. I'm not sure if WWE is really a good place for anybody right now with all of the uncertainty going on. But in terms of being featured, Jay White, I feel like the level of which he is over in New Japan didn't feel like it translated onto AEW TV for some reason. And I think Jay White is awesome. And I think maybe with WWE, now this is with, if Vince was in charge of WWE, I would be pushing for Jay White to be in AEW all the way. But if WWE is heavily recruiting him, and they want him and they're willing to pay him, again, you know, these are situations of you want a return on your investment. And if you're willing to pay him more to get him, you're not just going to have him chase, well, I guess the 24/7 title doesn't exist anymore, but you're not going to have him working main event tapings all the time. Let's just put it that way. He's going to be there. He's going to be a force. And maybe they can find a way to accentuate some of the qualities that he has from a charisma standpoint and some of those qualities that get him the connection with the fans that he has in New Japan. And maybe WWE and Triple H, you know, obviously, you know, being aware of him and maybe a better idea of how to use him, can put him on the right track. And being in the WWE, one thing that WWE has right now over AEW is they don't have these instances of really good top stars being visibly absent for months at a time. They don't have a Miro there sitting in catering. Sure, they got a lot of people sitting in catering, but not top tier talent sitting there. So if Jay White is going to be brought in, he's going to be used, and he's going to be set on a trajectory. He's going to be featured every week, and he's going to get exposure. And that's only going to increase his value and potentially get him more money in the future. And I think WWE right now might be actually a better place for him than AEW. Usually I don't say that, but I think Jay White coming in, given the Cody and Jay White match or something, would be so much fun. I am looking forward to him coming in. I don't know if he would pass through NXT or not. I would say no. I would not put him in NXT. I would put him right to the main roster. I don't think there's a reason for him to go to NXT unless it was briefly, because you still have to learn the WWE style. I just think a star of his magnitude, you know, if Okada came in, I wouldn't put him in NXT. And I think Jay White is more than ready and more than capable and more of experienced and more than enough, has more than enough experience and name recognition to not need to go through NXT first. But they could just run some vignettes for him and then debut him, and I think he would do just fine there. You can bring him in just like you did AJ. Bring him in the Rumble. That would be kind of cool. I mean, if he's leaving New Japan anyway, and they allowed him to show up in the Rumble early, that would be awesome. You know who I'd like to see in the Rumble is Great Muta. I think that would be very awesome. It might happen. So anyway, Jay White could be heading to WWE soon. Know who else could be heading to WWE soon? Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, latest update on him, courtesy of Fightful Select. Update on Cody Rhodes, who he's trained with for his return. Cody is on his way back and was recently working to get in-ring clearance. Sources familiar with the situation confirmed to Fightful Select that not only is Cody Rhodes preparing for his return, he's been at the Performance Center to prepare. Cody Rhodes and his big-ass bus were both spotted at the Performance Center in late December, as were members of his family and team. A particularly interesting note is that Cody was able to select who helped him prepare for his return. We're told that Cody handpicked NXT stars Carmelo Hayes and Joe Gacy to work alongside him and help him get ready for an on-screen return. Now that, not that it's any surprise, but Cody is factored into WWE's WrestleMania plans, and he has been as far back as this past fall. So we knew Cody was going to be coming back. I don't even think at this point you really need to have him return as a surprise in the Rumble. I think he can just declare, show up on TV, maybe on a go home and say he's in the Rumble. I think that's the way to do it with Cody, but they might want to just save it. Who knows? I also think it would be really, really awesome if Cody and Seth were numbers 1 and 2 in the Royal Rumble, and I do believe Seth Rollins has declared for the Rumble. We'll talk about the Rumble card in a minute, but welcome almost back, Cody. Really excited to see him back after that amazing debut at WrestleMania and the unfortunate injury that turned into one of the most insane matches we've ever seen. And Cody's story last year was incredible, despite him having a very short amount of time to actually wrestle in the WWE. Only had a few matches before getting injured. Really excited to have him back. Hopefully he remains healthy, and whatever storyline they have him pursue, it translates into championship gold, and he can get that moment that we all want Cody to have, and hopefully that will be coming very soon. Like I said, this past week's AEW Dynamite was at the Kia Forum in Los Angeles, and I was there. I'm going to be dropping a review and experience of that show tomorrow on the channel. Premieres noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and it'll just be a review of the show spliced in with a lot of footage and some pictures that I took while I was there, and just an overall experience / vlog of my time in LA. Sorry it took me a few days to get it up, but I was really busy at work and didn't really have time to edit that and record it. So it's ready. Just have to polish it up and dot the I's and cross the T's, and I will have that hit the channel tomorrow, just a few hours before we watch Royal Rumble 1996 together. So just keep that in mind for tomorrow. But we did see some great matches on that show, which you will hear about tomorrow. Moxley versus Hangman Page, Bryan Danielson against Takeshita, and the amazing, crazy ladder match main event with the Elite winning the titles. And, of course, the return of Adam Cole, which made me so happy. Got a retweet from Adam Cole today. I was going through all my footage last night, and I had a video. I didn't even know I recorded it. I kind of forgot that I did, but I did record Adam Cole's return from my seat when Shivani introduced him, when we all thought it was going to be MJF. And I was like, oh, that's a great video. So I tweeted it, tagged him in it, and he shot it with a retweet. Very cool. So happy he's back. And I think as soon as next week, he should be back on TV, targeting somebody major and get him into the mix. Don't drag your feet with Adam Cole. If he's cleared and he's ready, he's a main eventer. So feature him, Tony Khan. Don't have him sitting back there and forget that he's there. None of that shit. So stay tuned and tune in tomorrow for my Dynamite review. This coming week on Dynamite on the 18th is stacked. We've got Bryan Danielson taking on Bandito. Danielson, of course, is on his track to get to that Iron Man match against MJF. We also have Ricky Starks taking on Jake Hager. That was set up in a not-so-great promo on Wednesday. We've got a Hangman Page interview. We're also going to have the Young Bucks taking on Top Flight. That's interesting. 1 week after winning the Trios Championships, they're going to be in a tag team match. Okay. We also have an All-Atlantic title match. Orange Cassidy defending against Jay Lethal. We've got a TNT title match. Darby Allin defending against Kushida. That's awesome. Darby Allin and Kushida on Wednesday? Fuck yeah. And we also have Tony Storm and Willow Nightingale booked for the show as well. So that's looking stacked, especially that Darby Allin Kushida match. Holy crap, that's going to be good. Last night we saw AEW Rampage. Now, I did not really watch the show. I just watched a couple of clips of it because I was at the Forum on Wednesday when they taped this. So I watched Darby Allin defeat Juice Robinson. I also watched the Max Caster rap. Now, I recorded their entrance, and Max Caster actually screwed up. There was a few videos of this floating around online. I posted it right after. Max Caster came out to start his rap, and he fucked up his lines, and he goes, "No, forget it. Let's start again," because it was taped, so they were just going to reshoot it, and the fans just lost their mind. Everybody was laughing. "You fucked up, Chance." Billy Gunn then grabs the mic from Renee, and he goes, "Now you know why I only say 2 words, or I only said 2 words." And they come out and they redo the entire entrance again and the entire rap where we heard him drop all the lines. Forgot what he talked about now, but he had all that good stuff to say about WWE and whatever the fuck else. I can't remember, but it was hilarious to watch him screw that up, come back out and do it, and he did it just fine, and they were able to do that segment with no problem. We also saw the segment, which wasn't very good, with Paul Walter Hauser. He played Stingray on Cobra Kai, which is one of my favorite shows. He won a Golden Globe for Blackbird, although I don't know what Blackbird is, and they did a segment where he was in the ring with Renee. Danhausen came down, and then Jeff Jarrett and company came down and nailed Paul Walter Hauser with one hell of a chair shot. And I found out Hauser is from Saginaw, Michigan, when I was doing my research for tomorrow's review that you're going to hear. And that's where my dad was born, in good old Saginaw. Anyway, we also had the House of Black defeating Eddie and Ortiz in a pretty good match. That was fun to see live. And that main event was bonkers. We had Ruby, Soho, and Willow Nightingale teaming up to take on TJ. And Ruby and Willow were dressed in Dudley Boys themed gear. They looked great. It was awesome. And it was a pretty hardcore street fight. And I didn't watch the whole match last night, but I did watch the Anna Jay bump, and from where I sat, I could see, as a matter of fact, I got it on video, of the Willow Anna Jay bump off the stage onto the table, where Anna landed very, very badly, flat on her back with no protection, right on the concrete there, it looked like. But I didn't realize the bump was that gnarly from where I sat. I didn't notice it until after I saw the replay, and I'm like, oh my God. So I hope she is okay. Ruby Soho, of course, got extremely bloody in this. She had a crimson mask, or a ruby mask, which I thought was great. Can AEW overdo it with the blood sometimes? Sure. But look at this match. This was a hardcore street fight between a bunch of women who want to tear each other's heads off, and it's Friday the 13th. If you can't handle a little blood on Friday the 13th, then you soft as baby shit. My God. It's Friday the 13th, man. What are you going to do after this? You're going to complain about the blood and then turn on Nightmare on Elm Street and watch Freaky Jason kill everybody? Come on. So people weren't happy about the blood, but I don't really care. That is not a discourse I even would entertain for a minute. Who cares? Hate the blood if you want. I thought it was awesome. And overall, the show on Wednesday was a lot of fun. And Rampage, even though I didn't get a chance to see it, I saw a couple of the clips last night. Rewind to this past week's Monday Night Raw. It was so great watching Dominic become hard. We've seen the vignettes about talking about his 30 minutes he spent in processing and how that has changed him. And he has learned a lot of things in prison and in the yard. And he's kind of wearing like the white tank top. He's got the toothpick, and he's, prison changes a man. Well, this week he comes out with the Judgment Day, and he is dressed full-on K-Dog style. This guy coming out there looking like Conan. So he's now taken influence from his own father, from Eddie Guerrero, and now Conan, which is hilarious. And seeing him with that bandana and dress like that and the sunglasses, so good. Of course, he pusses out when he has to replace Finn Balor, I believe, in that tag match. But they would go on to win, and I think Dominic and Damian Priest now are going to get a shot at the Usos for the Raw Tag Team titles, I believe. And as we're going to talk about here in a minute on SmackDown, they might be separating those two titles out. Now, last night on SmackDown, it was an okay show. They had the big Intercontinental title match that was advertised with Gunther defending against Strowman, and I was nervous as hell about this one. I do not want to see Strowman win that Intercontinental title, especially right now with the role that Gunther is on and the potential huge match you could have with him at the Royal Rumble or at WrestleMania if he keeps the title that long. And this would be a very odd place for him to drop the Intercontinental title. But we were about to find out who was really in charge of creative, because if Triple H was really in charge, then Gunther should be safe. But if Vince McMahon is pulling all the strings, he's probably going to put over Braun Strowman. But in the end, Gunther was able to retain the title. Thank God. Gunther and Rey Mysterio both declare for the Royal Rumble last night on SmackDown as well. And we saw the announcement of Adam Pearce that there's going to be a SmackDown tag title tournament to determine the new number one contenders. So Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, who I guess are calling themselves the Banger Brothers or the Banger Bros, and now they're making all sorts of references to maybe these two guys traveling from show to show on a bus. I don't know what that's about. I don't know. You guys might have to fill me in there because I'm clueless. That's kind of funny. I like Sheamus and Drew together. I think they should win this whole thing and win the tag team titles. I think the two of them are friends, much like Owens and Sami Zayn are friends. I think it would mean a lot to the two of them. They've gotten to work together in title programs before, and they've had angles together, but winning the tag team titles, I don't think they, unless they've been tag team champions before, and I'm completely forgetting, I think it would be good for them. So they're going to be taking on the Viking Raiders next week in round 1 or whatever of this thing, and they are going to beat the Viking Raiders. There is no way the Viking Raiders are going to beat Sheamus and Drew. And since Drew really isn't in the title picture right now, Sheamus has been doing great work. Let him run with the tags. It might be fun. At least it would put the tag team titles on a couple of great ass-kicking mofos, you know what I mean? So I'd be in favor of that. I would rather have Sheamus and Drew win the SmackDown tag team titles than have Dominic and Priest win the Raw tags. Although I feel like Dominic and Priest might win the Raw tag team titles with everything Dominic's going through and all of these changes, putting some gold around his waist too, just to increase his confidence, might be pretty funny. So I don't know, but I think I'd prefer Sheamus and Drew. If one team is going to beat the Usos, or if potentially the Usos are going to drop both sets of titles, but I think you definitely need to save one set of titles for WrestleMania for Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens to beat the Usos for the title. But Kevin Owens might be WWE champion by then. We don't know. We also had a Rey Mysterio and Karrion Kross promo. Kross just insulted Rey and his family enough until Rey attacked and they brawled. Nothing really there. I think Rey is a good opponent for Kross right now. Rey should be able to give Karrion Kross that good match that he desperately needs. He's been okay in the ring, but working with Rey's going to, fly around and bump around, and working with McIntyre is a little bit different. So Kross's promo was fine. Fans didn't give a shit at all, but I still think this program and match with Rey should result in a pretty decent payoff, I think. And who knows if Kross, like I said, is going to somehow get involved with the Judgment Day. Him and Scarlett do have that gimmick that is a little bit like that. They could merge and put them together, but that might overgrow the faction too great. I'm not sure there. Bray Wyatt promo as well. A lot of the same shit again. A lot of fans are complaining about the pace of this angle, and I agree. It's going slow. Even on Monday, they had Uncle Howdy come out and mess with Alexa Bliss, but what did they really do? He just came out there. So this is a very slow burn. And Bray Wyatt hasn't even had a match yet. His first match back is going to be a Mountain Dew match. Not sure how I feel about that, but it's the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match with LA Knight at the Royal Rumble. Bray Wyatt, as usual, can cut a hell of a promo. His delivery is impeccable, but there's nothing in the promo. There's no meat. There's no information. There's no storytelling. There's no furthering of this, where you just listen to his promo, and I'm conflating them all. Like, I can put this promo, just rewind and put the same one 2 weeks ago. You wouldn't know the difference. It doesn't feel like there's any new information for us to follow. And if he is leaving a breadcrumb trail, it's a little bit too subtle for us to figure out or to want to dissect, because I'm not going to sit through and listen to that 6-minute promo. I'm sorry. I'll kind of get the gist of it, but I'm not on the edge of my seat because none of these promos are revealing anything to me where I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know, or oh, that's what he's going to do, or something just to reveal kind of what the plans are. The only thing he did say here is that I am me or whatever. And a lot of us are kind of assuming that these different extensions of Bray Wyatt and the Uncle Howdy, and if we ever see Uncle Harper, they're going to all wind up just being different versions of himself. And I kind of understand that. We did hear reports of Bo Dallas being spotted backstage, so he is likely the one who is maybe under the Uncle Howdy mask right now. But like I said, even if there's going to be some sort of a big reveal with Uncle Howdy and Bo Dallas is going to be revealed as Uncle Howdy, what kind of reaction would that get from the audience? Who was Bo Dallas the last time he was on TV? He was a joke in that tag team with Curtis Axel, the B team, running around like idiots to Bo leave and everything. You know, I couldn't imagine him taking off the mask to reveal it's Bo Dallas, and the fans are like, oh my God, it's Bo Dallas. What a mind blow. And they're like, that fucking guy? Like, that's, I mean, yes, many fans know that they're brothers, but that was never really talked about on WWE TV. The casual fan might not understand the significance of Bo Dallas being Uncle Howdy. And I can't imagine if he takes off the mask for the crowd to moan or scream or react in a loud way at all. They might not quite know who he is. We haven't seen him in a few years. Who knows what he even looks like? He might be different. He might look older. He might have a beard now. And some fans might not recognize him. So fine, if it is Bo Dallas, great. But is that really going to be the big reveal? The person pulling the strings is Bo fucking Dallas? So I think Bo Dallas is just going to be a part of the angle, but I don't think he's going to be the mastermind. I don't think he's going to be the Oz of whatever the hell's going on here. I think at the end of the day, that's going to wind up being Bray Wyatt, if I had to guess. But nothing really is being revealed in these promos, and it's growing tiresome to the fans. And you know what? I'm fine with like long-term storytelling, because we heard when Wyatt came back that they have long-term plans written out for him. They know where they're going with him and what they want to do with him at WrestleMania. We heard about this like way back in October. So if they already have these plans in place, and Bray Wyatt, who spent a couple of years away from WWE, has taken that time to really think about this from a creative standpoint and know the story that he wants to tell, and they have paced it out in the way that they did, but then they're realizing that maybe the pacing is too slow. Well, if you already have everything written out, the only way to really fix that is to either sidebar or do a little side angle or add something to the story that wasn't previously planned to draw it out. Or you have to fast track stuff, or you have to get to the point a little quicker, which might screw up your WrestleMania plans if everything leads to that. It might force you to change that, and then you're screwing up all your stuff, and then everything that you've so carefully laid out, you're having to rework because the fans are growing annoyed. So I don't know if that's really the best course of action either. I feel like, in my personal opinion, even though I don't necessarily agree, or I don't necessarily disagree with the fans who say this is moving too slow, it is. I don't disagree with the fans who say every Bray Wyatt promo is the same. It is. But considering how much wrestling we currently have to watch, 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, 2 hours of Dynamite, an hour of Rampage, Battle of the Belts, pay-per-views out the ass, independent wrestling everywhere. If there's one angle that's like taking a while, it's okay. There's so much more that's not taking a while. There's a lot of angles that are moving too fast. There are some angles that are moving just right. This one is taking a while. And I have been really good, as I'm now firmly entrenched in my 40s, of exhibiting patience. I got no problem waiting. I'm in no hurry, man. So in my mind, provided the payoff to whatever they're doing here, whatever this long, slow-ass burn is with Bray Wyatt, as long as the payoff is good, as long as they hit us with a great surprise, a great payoff, or some incredible moments along the way, and the end result, we say that was a great angle, then I can live through all this. Yeah, it might seem tedious now, and it's not moving very fast now, but if you get to the point where things are happening, and I think the first place something needs to happen, something major needs to happen, needs to be the Royal Rumble, to where they can really start at least informing the fans of what their plans are here, then I think that's where the soonest it needs to happen in the Mountain Dew go F yourself match. So it's going slow, but if they give us a great payoff, a great reveal, a great surprise, and they tell a story that we haven't seen before, so this is all very strange. The Fiend was very strange. We never really saw anything like that either. And this is kind of new. So we have to trust the creative mind of Bray Wyatt. We have to trust that they know what they're doing here. It's just they are moving way, way, way too slow. But like I said, it's one small segment of one of many shows that we have to choose from. and the entire business isn't moving as slow as the Bray Wyatt storyline, just this storyline itself. So you know what? I'll give it some slack. I'm not going to give it much. I'm going to give it more than the average fan, but I myself will also reach my breaking point. If they have this pitch black match at the Royal Rumble, and it's just a Sister Abigail and a victory for Bray Wyatt, and then the next week on TV, it's just more of the same, I'm going to be like, all right, what the hell are we doing here? So we'll see. We'll see how it goes in the next couple of weeks. The main event last night on SmackDown was Kevin Owens taking on Sami Zayn. Now, Sami Zayn is still in the bloodline, but just barely. It's starting to become, the honeymoon is definitely over. You're starting to see more and more, I guess, disgust in the bloodline with Sami Zayn. Paul Heyman, every time he talks to Sami Zayn, rolls his eyes every time Sami walks away. We know the issues Jay has had. Roman has been very complimentary of Sami in recent weeks, but that has changed since Sami Zayn helped him or cost them the victory in the John Cena match. So Sami is, he's a little bit on shaky ground with the bloodline. So he goes to the bloodline's locker room, knocks on the door. Paul Heyman answers, and he goes, I just want to go and talk strategy with the guys. And Paul Heyman's like, I'm the only one here. There's no Usos. There's no Solo Sikoa. There's no Roman. The tribal chief has decided that he wants you to handle this on his own. So Sami's like, cool. You text the tribal chief and you tell him that he made the right call. I'm going to go take care of business tonight. And the dude goes out there and has a match with Kevin Owens and has him down and has him beat. Owens is completely dazed in the corner, perfectly set up, perfect for the haluva kick. And then just out of nowhere, the bloodline hits the ring and just starts beating the hell out of Kevin Owens. When Sami had it, they rang the bell, disqualification, and now you have to wonder as a fan, all this time that we've been talking about Sami and the bloodline, dating all the way back to November or October, we said this is going to end with the bloodline destroying Sami. And I had this whole redemption story in my head where Kevin Owens can help pick him up and build him back up, and Sami can learn from his mistakes and have a redemption at WrestleMania, winning some gold with his friend, something like that. I think most fans kind of had a scenario like that on our radar. But now, I wouldn't be surprised. This would be it's a story of Sami and his development as a person, his character development here, as he is learning how he's being manipulated, and he might be the one to turn on the bloodline first. So I actually think that's now a possibility. Before it was like, well, at some point, bloodline's just going to kill him. But maybe Sami will turn on them first, and he's got one hell of an opportunity coming up at the Royal Rumble when Roman Reigns defends his title against Kevin Owens. So Sami could either accidentally cost Roman Reigns the title and Kevin Owens wins the championship, and then Sami gets murdered immediately after that, and he's officially out of the bloodline. Or Sami turns and Sami helps Kevin Owens. Owens has finally gotten to him enough. Sami is kind of, maybe he's going back and watching replays of SmackDown, and he's looking, I never noticed they rolled their eyes at me when I walk away. And then maybe finally this idiot realizes that these people don't give a shit about him at all. And it starts to dawn on him that, I'm not really a member of this family and this bloodline. I'm a pawn, I'm a toy, I'm a puppet, and no more. And maybe he figures it out before they know that he knows. They don't know that we know they know we know, kind of thing from Friends. So maybe Sami is now the manipulator, no longer the manipulatee. And he starts launching a counterattack on them internally. I might be thinking way too deep here, but once he realizes that they're just using him, he plots his own revenge or a way to save himself from them. And that could be costing Roman Reigns the WWE title. I think it would be even better if Sami Zayn is the one to actually win the WWE title, but I'm not sure what road we take to get there yet, especially since we have the Elimination Chamber in Montreal in between Rumble and WrestleMania, which is going to be all kinds of interesting. So still liking that storyline, still ready for it to implode. Royal Rumble coming up is going to be a lot of fun, and something big is going to go down with Owens, Sami, and Roman at that show, and who knows how that will conclude at WrestleMania. And what's your over-under? Roman Reigns, how many championship belts does he have in his possession the night after WrestleMania? 2, 1, or none? What do you think? Place your bets. So let's look at the Royal Rumble card. Here's what we got. Kevin Owens challenging Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE title. Bray Wyatt and LA Knight in the Mountain Dew Go F Yourself match. We've got the Women's Royal Rumble. Here are the names who have at least declared, the ones that I have written down anyway. Liv Morgan, Candice LeRae, Rhea Ripley, and Raquel Rodriguez. For the Men's Rumble, we have Kofi Kingston, Santos Escobar, Ricochet, Baron Corbin, Austin Theory, Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, Rey Mysterio, and Gunther so far declared for the Men's Rumble. And like I said, I would love for Seth and Cody to start 1 and 2. And I laid out a long scenario a couple of weeks ago proposing a Rock victory in the Royal Rumble. Suppose Cody and Seth start out number 1 and 2. Cody's 1, Seth is 2. Both men last a long time. Seth gets tossed out midway through the match. Cody makes it all the way until the end. And it's just him and a few guys in there. He eliminates everybody right after number 29 comes out, throws him over the top rope. He falls back, completely spread eagle like a starfish in the dead center of the ring after fighting nearly 30 men for an hour straight. He is in the ring completely motionless as the clock ticks down to number 30, and it's The Rock. And he comes out slowly. Fans are cheering, but they're also like, oh shit. And he stands up and he laughs. He looks down at Cody, picks him up, holds him by his hair, slaps his face a little bit, and then just tosses him over the top rope like a sack of garbage. Doesn't even break a sweat, wins the Royal Rumble, and now goes into WrestleMania, and the fans are not pleased with him. So maybe he then goes in as a heel and puts Roman Reigns over in a title match, not winning the championship. I think that could be fun, but that's a big risk that I don't know if WWE would take. I don't even know if The Rock would want to be a heel. A lot of people say, oh, they're not going to boo him. I think they would. They booed him in 2015 when he came out there to try to help get Roman over. I think there's only one man in the history of the business who's completely impervious to boos, and that's Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think he's a guy that would get a reaction no matter what. Nobody's booing him. But everybody else who gets big reactions, Hogan, Rock, Vince McMahon, you still have people that don't like him. And I think if The Rock won the Rumble, there would be enough fans in that arena that would say, yo, that's bullshit, son, type of thing. I don't care if it's The Rock. He just came in and just completely shit on everything Cody just did. Maybe, like I said, maybe Austin could get away with that. But Rock, I think you would have enough people boo to where it would be noticeable that they're not happy with him. And maybe we get heel Rock. Because we already had Return Rock 10 years ago, the catchphrases, the babyface Rock. Let's get one more call back to Hollywood Rock and have him come back as an asshole. And then right at the very end, right before Rock leaves and retires forever, turns back babyface at the last minute and says goodbye in a great way. And he just kind of gave us heel Rock for that short time there. That could be fun. That would be one way to make The Rock's involvement in a match at WrestleMania worth it. And I know there's the camp. There's a big camp out there. Rock and Roman doesn't need the title. I hate that. I don't think it's that easy just to say that. I think having it be for the title would be fine. But fans have those opinions. So anyway, that concludes my notes. I'll go over here to the chat and see what else you guys want to talk about before getting out of here, as we have had a 2-hour podcast. Look at there. Having kind of a long one today. That's awesome. Let me cruise back up here and knock out the ones I have missed. I guess it's going to be Devlin Husband. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody else. Before that, Spectre, I got you. Hollywood Guy, I got you. Right on. Okay, Devlin's next. $5 from you. Thanks again, my friend. One thing I forgot, this is the Jericho cruise in 2 weeks. I will be repping my Good Mike Work shirt on that cruise. Can't wait for this one. Man, you're going again, you lucky bastard. Maybe the next one. I actually think the next one is possible. Unfortunately, too much going on this year. We just went to Dynamite the other night. I got WrestleMania coming up. If I can swing it, I would like to make a quick East Coast trip this summer if I can to see some friends. I would like to go to Double or Nothing again in May. That's all big ifs here. So all that going on, Jericho Cruise wasn't going to happen, but maybe next year. But when I went in 2020, it was so much fun. And we got in right before the pandemic hit. It was a blast, and that was the double whammy. So that was part 2. I think this is the 4th one that they're on here. So Devlin, have a great time. Make sure you take lots of pictures. Thanks for repping the shirt, and I cannot wait for some of the footage from that. And next year, maybe we'll try to go on the 5-bagger or whatever they're going to call next year. It'll be great when we get to the Ocho cruise. I might have to save it for the Ocho. Maybe I wait a couple years and go for the Ocho. Jimmy Fingers 19. Thank you so much, man, for the $10. I am the biggest Bray fan out there, but I am starting to fall asleep during his entrance, which is longer than his promos. I fear the payoff to his story is going to fall short with VKM looming. Well, Jimmy, I agree with you. That was my whole point earlier, is that as long as the payoff is good, then I'll cut the slow pace of this some slack. VKM looming, I wouldn't worry too much about that, because VKM would have to come in and actually change all of the plans that apparently they've had written for quite some time. So if it was a ever-changing angle and they're kind of writing things as they go, then I can see Vince being a presence there if they sold the company and then he's back in creative and he completely screws up this whole thing. But if they've already got the wheels in motion here, Vince fucking that up just to mess it up is definitely possible. I don't know why I'm ruling that out. So yeah, Jimmy, you are 100% right about that. If the payoff to the story does fall short, it will make all this a complete waste of time, and that will be frustrating. You're definitely right, because I have a cat hair in my eye. Jimmy's back with $5.19 more. Appreciate that, dude. I will further add on Bray. It would not shock me if LA Knight rolls him up in 5 minutes at the Royal Rumble. This shit is falling flat. LA Knight is moreover. That's another opinion I've heard before. LA Knight is great. Good on Triple H for making him LA Knight. The Max Dupree shit was stupid, and LA Knight was just fine. So he's back to that. He's doing a great job. Many people feel like he's outshining Bray Wyatt on the mic, and they're not wrong about that. He's fantastic. I still think he's going to lose. Rolling up Bray Wyatt in his return match in 5 minutes is not something I would think Triple H would do, but hell, man, I could be wrong. I would still go with a Bray Wyatt victory, but I think one positive coming out of this is that LA Knight is getting recognition. Fans are recognizing what a good job he's doing. He's being put in a very weird angle for someone like him to be in, given the nature of his character. And he's also in an angle that's a kind of an enigma. We don't really know what they're doing and what their plans are. So he's thriving in this situation. He's making the best of it. He's going out there and he's doing great work. So even if he loses to Bray Wyatt, which I expect him to, number one, it's a Mountain Dew go fuck yourself match, so who cares? And number two, he will still get recognition in the loss to where Triple H is going to say, I want to use this guy more. And he'll be in another feud after this because he's already in 40 or in his 40s or something like that. So he's got probably a window. So capitalize on that window before it closes. He's too good not to, you know. What's up, Turbo Onion? Good to see you. Mr. Gray host in the house as well. Transferring heat. Anybody else I've missed popping in? Hello to you. Gerald Williams, thank you for being here. If anybody has not hit that thumbs up button yet, it would be appreciative. Looks like we've got one. Tatanani says 1. Roman Reigns will walk out of WrestleMania with 1 championship. Ratnick says 3. So Roman's going to walk out of there with the women's title as well. That's awesome. Max Pokebros back. Thanks, dude. $2 more. It would be easier if Roman just had 1 belt. I agree. I really hope that we get some belt redesigns. I think the unification is temporary. I still feel like, based on some of the evidence we've seen on TV, specifically last night, that separating the titles seems like it's something they're going to do. But I still am holding out hope that we get some sort of championship belt redesign. See that championship on Gunther right there? Ugh, I can't believe I'm even featuring that on this podcast. Is that bad boy back? A good old classic. I really hope that we get a redesign of the Intercontinental. I hope we get a redesign of the tags. And I hope we get a redesign of the 2 world titles if, in fact, we're going to still have 2. If we're going to have a WWE and a Universal, make them look different, man. I know the big-ass WWE's got to be on it, but can we have a compromise there? Triple H is the only person in wrestling that could potentially give a shit about the old school look of championship belts and the history of specific titles. And I think having the big gold belt or the Winged Eagle or both on WWE would look awesome. Imagine Cody with the Winged Eagle and Gunther with the big gold. Oh my God. Or Roman with the big gold. They'd look fantastic. They'd look amazing. So I would love to see those belts return, but I think that's highly unlikely. I think the WWE needs their big ass logo right there. But as you can see, it's not all over the Intercontinental title. It's just with the world titles and the women's belts too. Do a redesign for them. Create a women's Intercontinental title and make it the classic design with the white strap and some sparkles on it. It'll be perfect. Triple H is the only guy I trust to make this happen. It would be nice, but I know that Triple H has kind of got a lot going on right now, so I will give him some slack on the championship belts. But at some point, the blandness of WWE's championship belts needs to be addressed. 100%. Yeah, personally think AEW needs to utilize that cruise more often. We've only had one Dynamite on it so far. Yeah, we were there. I saw one of the first championship changes in AEW history, or the first one, title change with Kenny and Hangman winning the tags on that Dynamite show. They could definitely run an angle there, like when we're docked at the harbor or something. They can throw somebody off the boat. Darby can just fucking, maybe not. I don't even think they'd let him jump off if he wanted to, but I can see Darby just jumping off the boat. I think that would put him in grave danger if he did that. But they could definitely run some angles and shoot some stuff. The cruise was a blast. Loved it. I hope you have fun. You are very lucky to be going on that again. But I just cannot travel that often when I have so much other stuff going on. Or I can't travel so many trips so close together. But have fun, man, and send me some pictures. Edge's spinner belt was awesome. Ben, you are smoking crack. There's no spinner belt that's awesome. No spinner belt. I don't care what's in the middle and what's spinning. None of them have been good. They look like pieces of crap. Yep. Transferring heat is right. Sami isn't feeling Usi. Something is up. So, all right. I think that's going to do it. That's going to be a wrap on this week's. Thank you so much, guys, for being here for a very long Winged Eagle podcast tonight. Don't forget, big day tomorrow. I'm going to shut down this stream and immediately upload the audio to the website and push it out to the podcast feed, so the audio will be available right away. Then I'm going to work on finishing up my AEW Dynamite review from this past Wednesday when I was at the Forum in LA. So that will be premiering on the channel at noon Eastern tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific, if you want to check that out. And then doubleheader tomorrow as we will return later on that night at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific for a watch-along of Royal Rumble 1996. I am very much looking forward to that. Tomorrow is going to be fun. You guys have a good rest of your night. Happy Saturday night to you. Whatever you plan on doing, be safe, be cool, and I will catch you guys twice tomorrow. Have a good one. Peace.